Okay. Well, if you're in watching now, just give me a few minutes. See if anybody pops in. Hopefully, then we'll get the stream going. So, just giving it some time. If you're in here, thanks for being in here early. I appreciate you. Today we're going over a Vice News documentary, Searching for Masculinity. So we'll see if this is any good. I am watching it on Tubi. I don't know if that means that it'll start charging me. It does say it's free. So if we get stopped midway through, then that's just what's going to happen. So hopefully that is not the case. But I'm going to give it a few minutes, see if anybody comes in. And hopefully that happens. If not, hell, I might just call it. But and if you're watching this after the fact, I would just forward this like 10 minutes. So it's just going to be another 5 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. Damn, why does it do that? Streaming on YouTube always has to present its issues. Once I see some of the folks chat or leave a chat if you can, then I'll know. Yo, Will, welcome in, bro. Thank God my sound effects are working. Oh, I forgot to turn on a light. That's my problem. Oh, crap. Yo, I saw you're in Hawaii on your TikTok. Good stuff, man. It looks beautiful out there. Hi, Trevor. Welcome in, man. I got to get a new sound. I feel like I played this one out. I do have this one. That's like my announcement sound effect. And I also added this one. So the next time someone comes in and they're just talking mess, I'm just going to play the chimp sound. So the next time someone literally like... Uh-oh. The next time somebody poops in their hand and is flinging it at me, I'm just going to play the chimp sound, and it'll probably be followed by a ban shortly there. Yo, Klaus, welcome in, man. I was thinking about you earlier for some reason, and I was like, man, it's been so hot over here in Sacramento, and I was just thinking, I hope the weather in Germany is doing good. This is what we're watching today. So I found this. Apparently it's free. There's probably going to be ads. So whenever there's ads, I'll just mute it, and then maybe we can just talk amongst ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, I do have a baby crying on here. And then I also added a car crash sound today. I don't know why. I just felt like we needed that one. But yeah, we also got crickets. So that's one of my favorite from Coach Greg Adams' channel. But anyways, yeah, man. Glad everybody's in here, man. You guys make streaming worth it. I was just thinking about how I look forward to Saturdays at 7 p.m. now. Like, I genuinely do, because streaming has been fun, streaming on this channel. So I want to thank you guys for that. Last week was a disaster in the sense that my computer like crashed or did some reset, and it cut off the stream. And I'm really hoping it doesn't do that again. I don't know why it did that, but there's always a possibility it can happen. So if that does happen, as soon as it goes back up, what I'll do is leave a message in the chat. But the part that sucks is the viewers will have to migrate to the new YouTube video because it doesn't let me connect to the old link. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But that happened last week, and it sucked. So you need a bruh sound. Oh, I know which one you're talking about. The one from Legion of Men. Yeah, I'm going to add that to my list. I specifically keep a sound effects list of things that I need. Also, if this video doesn't work out, I have a backup video today. And if we don't get to that video today, because this is 50 minutes long, so it's going to be a long reaction. Next week is going to be the backup video that I have for today. Just put that in there, bruh. Sound effect needed. And I'm going to put your name in there, iTrevor, so when I look at this list, I'll be like, iTrevor asked for this. Therefore, I need to make good on it and do it. But yeah, I have a second video also. And that one is mainly about, it's a podcast called Spoiled Girl or something like that, Spoil Me Podcast. And it's just this woman, and, you know, she's definitely got a bone to pick with us, you know. And but the thing is she's reacting to the Pearl Michael Knowles video, and she kind of is able to pick out that there's this split between tradcons and red pillars. So it's kind of relevant to what we talk about, and it might also be enlightening for us to hear what they're complaining about, just to give the other side a fair shot. You know what I mean? Yo, Mr. Pitt, welcome in, man. Appreciate you being in here, man. Thank you. So that's going to be next week's episode. If this fails, if for some reason I'm watching this and they're just like, sorry, we don't want you watching this, or I get the copyright. Actually, let me put that up here on my TV. If we get the copyright and it wants to kill the stream and I got to kill this, then we can move on to that next video. The brother sound effect. Oh, damn, that's a good one too. Yeah, man. I actually like the sound effects idea. So I can erase chimp sound effect. And I'm going to add, brother, brother. That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Also, man, if you guys aren't part of the Discord, if you guys ever want to suggest stuff to me, I mean, you can do that on Instagram or Twitter, but you can also leave it in the Discord if you guys want. So that's an option there. I don't know. I feel like there's no point in holding us up any longer. We just need to get into the show here and start watching this. So everything's in order. I got my bottle of water. Door's locked. Cat's outside. And man, oh crap, I missed Klaus's chat. It's raining all the time, can barely call it a summer. Oh man, I feel like you got the opposite problem. We literally broke records here in Sacramento. It has been hot. We had the longest like heat wave on record since like 1870. It was painful. It was really painful. So that's kind of what I've been dealing with. Today's the first day where it's finally like 85 degrees. I actually went on a walk today. I've been doing good with my diet. I'm losing my relationship weight because I'm a single man again ever since a couple weeks ago. And I've been kind of strict. Well, it's not carnivore because I'm eating fruit, but it's just been like fruit, meat, and, you know, some onions mixed in with the meat and stuff like that. So that's moving in the right direction. Anyways, on to this. All right. And if there's any volume issues, I'm going to start at like 75. Just let me know. Okay. I don't think there's any other settings. It's on. Probably just leave it at auto. All right. Here goes.
To me, being a man means being able to care for and... Can I redo that? To me, being a man means to provide for and protect the ones you love.
Okay, so that's definitely the TradCon imperative right there. That's the condition in talking. And I think we all kind of grow up in that innocence. And we might even all feel that a little bit, you know. I think that's a good thing, right? Protecting the ones you love if you're part of a tribe and all that. But that gets hijacked. That gets hijacked to serve as a utility. So let's keep watching.
It's about struggling and sacrificing without any break.
Struggling and sacrificing without any break.
What makes a man is the things that he thinks and the actions that he takes.
You know, okay, so I think I can see what they're doing. What they're kind of starting this off with is sort of the traditional masculinity takes. And then they're going to move into the self-improvement guru of, like, you know, Andrew Tate and you know, the entire chorus of those guys. So we're starting off with, I guess, what used to be positive masculinity, what was the norm, and it's going to move into that. So that's okay. That I can see that.
Control and hard work and discipline. Yeah.
Being a man means things you need to protect, you protect. Things you need to care for, you care for. You know, having humility, having the ability to know when you were in trouble and out of your head.
Toxic masculinity is a phrase that's gained a lot of attention recently, especially with the Me Too movement.
The attack on men has been
I'll
the
put
tip
the
of the
volume down,
spear in the left's broader attack on America.
A lot of young men are just disoriented. And because of these different messages that they're getting through the lens of the culture war online, it's like being in a pinball machine.
Why is it that we have weak men today? Women want real men.
What is the ideal version of a man to you?
A man that can do whatever he wants to do and doesn't listen to anybody.
What do you want, pussy?
How to be an alpha in a relationship.
You can't stand up to a female. You are indeed weak.
You should be responsible for and productive for as
Man, they got
many
everybody
people
in
as you
here.
manage.
Most importantly, I think they're desperate for an answer because it's very different from what it was for their fathers.
The most terrifying thing about being a man is you're born without value. Society doesn't care about you. You're only going to be cared about based on how useful you are.
You want to know why Andrew Tate plays so fucking well? Because it's the purple cow in the sea of brown cows.
If you need a firefighter, you need a masculine man. When you call the police because of the problem you had, you want masculine men.
Men are failing in body, in mind, and in spirit. This is a crisis.
All right, so there's the intro. We got all the usual suspects. So we got the innocent kids, we got the innocent young guys, you know, the teenagers, and they're all susceptible to all this stuff. We're going to see what they make of it.
Pretty much everywhere, men and boys are struggling to figure out what it means to be a man today. I've been a reporter for a while, and I've spent a lot of time with people on the fringes of society. Extremists, outsiders, weirdos, lovable and less lovable. I met a lot of angry, frustrated guys. So dudes these days are clearly adrift, and I started recognizing a lot of those feelings in myself. I know I'm not alone asking these questions. During the last decade, a movement known as the manosphere has exploded online based on telling guys how to be men. And so
at least they've sort of acknowledged that things are different now, so hopefully the advice is something that's different from just go back to what you've always been told. Secular World, welcome in, man. I appreciate you in here. Diverse views, good. How will they present them? We'll see. That is $1 million question, and I haven't watched this yet either, so this is my first take of it.
some of the answers are pretty dark. So what we want to know is, what are the questions that men are asking, who's answering them, and what that says about modern masculinity.
Well, that's pretty much the outline of it. So just what are the questions and who's answering them and what that says about it. So they probably won't be presenting any solutions. That's fine.
The first goal for our time together is to discuss gender norms and stereotypes particularly related to masculinity. You probably know better than me that we're gonna get told all kinds of things about what it means to be a man as we grow up. Which brings us to the first breakout conversation called the man box. Everybody draw a box on your piece of paper if you have the marker.
My bro, he said make a box. Do whatever you want. Oh, that's a beautiful box.
Man, it's making me remember my days at school.
The first question is, what are the physical appearance stereotypes for boys? What clothing, what brands, what physical, like body attributes, hair, all of that?
So stereotypically, guys, they're supposed to have a big ass dick.
I didn't expect to hear that.
According to what my paper says. And
like being really tall, looking like tough and having a lot of body hair.
You know, for a guy, you're supposed to do like hard labor.
Man, women love body hair. It's not something I ever thought of, but the first person I was ever with, that became apparent to me, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was a marker there.
usually being buff and intimidating, or having some sort of masculine frame.
Well, that brings us to dating and relationships, right? Like, so we're supposed to be attractive as guys, but you don't want to have an hour-long skincare routine. That's just like a little bit too much. So what else for dating and relationships? We'll go to Will.
Dominance, being like a leader.
Being a leader, yeah.
And you're expected to pay for food and stuff like that. And
sure.
Have control in the relationship.
You'll want to bring a little...
I don't know if they like that word control. They're like, control? That sounds a little toxic to me.
formal atmosphere with you.
Okay.
Being expected to spend a lot of money on your significant other.
You have to be the giver always in the relationship, no matter what it is, firstly. And another thing would be you cannot have any type of emotion. Let's say if you're like whoever you're in a relationship with, and if they're having a bad day, and if you're having a bad day too, you're supposed to support them and tell them it's okay. Like, you know, tomorrow might be a better day.
Put your hand up if you're like, yeah, I'm familiar with
that emotions thing. Kind of just sparks a memory and sort of stuff inside. I mean, not even that, but just when it comes to like manosphere, because there's been so many threads and stuff that I've seen of like about how guys cannot cry in front of their romantic interest or their girlfriend or their wife, because like the minute they do, they might seem supportive on the surface, the woman, but then they instantly lose attraction for them. And there's so many guys corroborating that. So it's just like you just have to maintain that rock or whoever, you know, that frame. Otherwise it kills attraction. And that's kind of an interesting thing about red pill too, right? It's just about what creates attraction and what loses
everything
it.
we just came up with. Pretty much everyone. You can put your hands down. That's actually significant if you think about it, because nobody ever sat you down and said, like, these are the rules to manhood. Where do we get these messages? Who do we get them from? Where do we see these representations?
There's nothing like that well-groomed look to start the day off right.
Guides on how to be a man have been around for centuries, but social media has supercharged this quest for masculinity. One place with loud and clear messaging is the prominent pocket of the internet known as the manosphere, where the topics of wealth, muscles, and beautiful women are inescapable.
Men must perform, but we live in this crazy-ass world.
Oh, there we go. We got Myron.
Equal to women.
I would tell you that if it hurts, you might be
Jay
doing
Waller.
the right thing.
If you watched me last week, we spent a lot of time talking about him.
That's good. Go find pain.
The traditional methods of creating wealth, which are advertised to you, are a scam.
It's not a formal place, but a vague catch-all term for
the manosphere. We got the Seduction PUA community, MRA, men's rights activists. Okay. The red pill and MGTOW. Man, I've been watching more MGTOW stuff lately. I've just kind of noticed different channels, and I don't know. I started thinking I almost wanted to congratulate the MGTOW guys, because I feel like the MGTOW guys are making a big impact in terms of ignoring, you know, everyone's BS and just not giving out free money anymore to subsidize the entitlement of women. And that's what's having the biggest blowback in their faces right now.
Online spaces where men can channel their frustration about how their place in society has been upended.
Everyone to be rich.
The manosphere is just part of a bigger economy of masculine content online, where big personalities are teaching the art of manhood.
You better keep coming back.
Oh,
the sooner
man.
you understand that there is nobody coming to save you, the sooner you're going to be on your way to doing something amazing. The difference between people that are successful and not successful, it's the ability to push down the fear of uncertainty, push down the fear of failure. This is one of the reasons why
Aaron Marino is known to his 6.8 million YouTube subscribers as Alpha M. His online identity is built around helping young men navigate the unique challenges of manhood.
I shave my balls. The alpha nuts, smooth.
When did you start YouTube?
YouTube was 2008.
Early.
I'm talking like there were cat videos and me. I was like the low budget blue collar GQ. And I was happily doing my thing, but there was a point at which I realized there's something bigger going on. One of the comments that I would get all the time is like, this is the stuff that my dad should have taught me, but he wasn't around. And so I felt that I was filling this specific void of the things that you would normally go to a father or a brother to ask questions. And I was kind of solving that problem for these guys. There's definitely been this like growing discontent or this growing feeling of lost and not knowing where you fit in the modern world. There you go. No, that's the wrong way to, no.
You know, one interesting question too, and I wonder if they'll go over it, is like, why do men feel that way now? What is it about the modern world that makes men not know where they fit into it, you know? And are they going to touch on some of those reasons, whether it be technology or, you know, feminism and any of that kind of stuff? So we'll see. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see.
Pulse points, baby. The neck, boom, boom. Back of the head, maybe the ear, wrist. Fedora's out.
Is it?
Yes, out. But it looks good on you.
Yeah?
In the last few years, Aaron noticed that the way masculinity was talked about online was moving in a whole different direction.
there came this very negative kind of like groundswell of you could get a lot of views if you just talk trash about other people. And then from there, you took it to...
I almost feel like, I'm sorry, this is breathing way too much into it, but I feel like they do this framing on purpose. Like when they do a double interview like this, his head is kind of more so on the right of the screen when it should be like kind of here on the left, and then the other guy's here on the right. So when it goes back and forth, it's comfortable and it's balanced. But what they've done is they've put him way here on the right and the other guy way on the left, and it just kind of makes it uncomfortable to look at. I wonder if that's a purposeful decision, or if it's just, you know, happens.
The next step and the next level, which was, you know, kind of like this manosphere, which really only came up, I would say, really hit its stride probably 4 years ago. I think a lot of it had to do with the pandemic because everybody was so...
See that? Just a dead space there and
so
there.
Pissed off that we were shut down and that our life was changing, and all of a sudden people started to go more extreme, right? Because there was this pissed off nature about the world. It was like, oh, fuck you, don't tell me I can't go out. And it started with just YouTubers, but then it grew. And so a lot of these negative channels, you know, would get monster views. And the more outlandish, the more crazy you sound, the more attention you're gonna get, the more polarized your opinion, the more you're going to basically attract attention. And attention is literally the new currency.
We're in Las Vegas to meet Marquette Burton. Marquette is an online presence known as the Saint and the Sinner, and he's got a lot of thoughts about masculinity, and he's putting on a summit for a bunch of dudes.
I've heard of him. He was on the Whatever podcast, and I think he kind of got into it with Adam 22, whoever did the cut corn or whatever. And he called him out, and that guy stormed out and left. This guy's like kind of a blood sports debater, I guess you can say. And then also, one thing I don't really watch his channel, but one thing I did watch on his channel was he did an interview with Rollo, which was pretty interesting, and it talks about Rollo's history with the red pill. But one thing he did was he called him out on basically saying he criticized the red pill and said that the red pill doesn't have leadership. So I don't think he really is part of the red pill or anything like that, but he said it doesn't have leadership, and he kind of chewed Rollo out a little bit. That's kind of his thing. Like, he just chews everybody out, and he's pretty good at it. Klaus says, notice that too. That is a professional production. Things like that don't happen without purpose. Yeah, it seemed weird to me. Even me on this YouTube channel, when I frame some of the stuff, like I try to think about that. You know what I mean? So it's almost like they're trying to get these guys talking, but make it in a way where the audience is already primed to feel uncomfortable. So when they hear what they're saying, it feels even more uncomfortable.
Saints, looking good. Good to see you out. Peace to the Saints. Peace to the Saints. Oh, welcome.
Yeah, so he's called the Saint and the Sinner, and he has, I don't know if I can find it now. Maybe I can. He has like a website, and it is kind of, it's called Marquettism. That's his, he's got like a whole thing about that kind of just discusses his like philosophy on life. Let's see, what, maybe I can find it on his site. My internet's just so freaking slow. Oops, you don't have something of the modules yet. I read it once, and it's all right. If I can't find it, it's not a big deal.
I like
it's kind of culty, if I'm being honest.
Peace to the Saints. What's going on, young boy?
Marquette Burton has found a way to leverage his online presence to draw an in-person crowd. Dozens of men from across the country have flown into Las Vegas for the Dark Truth Summit, a two-day event that costs about $800 to attend. Burton spent the bulk of his career in the tech industry, but is now teaching young guys the tools they'll need to be his version of a great man, while also navigating the world of women.
Okay, so we have the Book of Dark Truths, and pretty much everything in the Book of Dark Truths is supposed to remain confidential. Being a good man or a great man today is different than it was yesterday and the generation previous. In fact, I can't tell you how many times in my experience I've heard chicks say, "Oh, you're such a gentleman," or "Why aren't you a gentleman?"
Oh, here we go. Okay, I found it. Let me just pull this up. Let's just so we're more familiar with who we're looking at on the screen. Here's kind of his philosophy. What is Marquettism? What is this? So his name's Marquette Devon. That's his first name. Before a meal, ask guests, what is one thing you're thankful for? I guess that's not bad. Always greet fellow saints warmly and gatherings, close lectures. There's capitalism and minimalism are his driving philosophies. See if I can find it. This might not be it. He basically advocates for like polygyny. So one man and then, oh, here we go. Saint is my primary identity, superseding all other identities, race, ethnicity, nationality, nuclear family. A household consists of a single male leader, typically a husband, under Sasson law. There may be no more than one husband who is born a male, along with any number of wives, all of whom are aware of one another and consent to one another's existence. So that's his deal. He's with that. Okay.
I remember I was in South Africa. I was sitting at a bar in Cape Town. There's this Russian gold digger comes up, sits next to me, starts engaging me in conversation. She says, "Oh, would you buy me a drink?" I said, "Absolutely not." She said, "Aren't you a gentleman?" I said, "Absolutely not." Like, of course not. I'd be a fool to be a gentleman right now, especially because you're not a lady, which is the pairing to the gentleman. So to be a good man today is different because maybe in the 1950s, she wouldn't even be there at the bar. Maybe in the 1950s, she wouldn't be a gold digger. Maybe in the 1950s, she would have a lower body count. We have an emerging matriarchy, de jure and de facto. Huh? You notice the laws don't favor you? Fathers go to court, can't get custody of their kids? Huh? Woman breaks up with you, still gets to take your money. She's not even with you. Females are over-enrolled in university, which means that they will be overrepresented in political office, judges, attorneys, power holders. You will see higher levels of matriarchy, which will be unfavorable, unreasonable, disadvantageous, and detrimental to the society at large. Not only to us, also to the women as well. You leave women to their own devices, what do?
Secular World says, which audience typically feels uncomfortable with this topic? Perhaps it's to add more discomfort. Or which audience? This tells me the rest of the video will be biased. Yeah, and it's made for like a sort of mainstream. It's made for people, I guess, outside of the manosphere that are not young men. So yeah, I mean, it'll probably only help them feel more solid in the views that they probably already had about it prior to this beginning. And, you know, it probably is going to be biased, so.
Blow up their lips, blow up their chest, blow up their butt to make themselves more sexually appealing, and then complain about being sex objects. Huh? So, for all of you,
man, see that? That's $800 for every head in there.
You want this. You want a family. Ideally,
it is. Yo, Dan the Man, welcome in, man. It is Vice News. Yeah. Man, I remember Vice in the beginning days. I swear to God, I remember like when Vice's like first video got popular. And the reason I remember is because it was about like the gun markets in Pakistan. And it was just, it seemed so on the ground and guerrilla, and then, you know, they became what they are, and now it's just high-end production.
Large one with competent people. What does this give you? What do you get from that? What? Power. Power, yes, absolutely. You get power.
For influencers like Burton, great men belong at the head of the table, at home and in the business world.
Like, if I'm going to take a girl seriously, I don't want her going to bars, clubs, and parties.
Men should be the stable ones. Men don't need to be crying in front of women. And
I like how they include Jordan Peterson. I mean, they got, you know, Chase over there. And it's, you know, from last week's discussion, it's like, looking at a guy like Jay Waller, I almost want to classify these guys. I think it was Miles Nevison in the chat who kind of called it like fourth wave tradcon. But it's like, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Jordan Peterson, those guys are TradCon 1.0. And guys like this, you know, the quote-unquote alpha simps that, you know, want you to rise up to the women's quote-unquote delusional expectations are kind of like TradCon 2.0 in the sense that they still say you should, you know, provide and pay and do all these things. But it's similar, but it's not really about liberating men. It's just about still putting you back into that masculine
Ideally, they're not splitting chores.
These hoes don't want a partner. They want a superior. And for you to be the superior, you must actually be superior in every facet. Finances.
This fixation with male-female relations is a persistent theme within the manosphere.
Should we just get started?
Yeah, just ask away.
Sandman is an anonymous YouTuber who has lived through the evolution of the manosphere from a series of disparate channels and forums into the full-fledged industry it's become today.
I am a YouTube content creator and in the manosphere, and I talk about issues facing male-female relations in the modern day.
What is the manosphere?
So the manosphere is basically a rough collection of blogs, video channels, you know, independent content creators that all kind of promote this idea that men have been overlooked over the last few centuries. And I think the manosphere is kind of this outlet for a lot of the energy and hostility that a lot of guys have felt because they haven't had their voices heard.
Could you break down the various camps within the manosphere?
I kind of appreciate that they're asking that question because I think most people don't know, like they don't know the difference between like the pickup community or MGTOW or, you know, the self-improvement or whatever it is, men's rights activists.
So yeah, like it's kind of a generational thing. So you can't just look at it in terms of, oh, there are groups that people choose to identify with.
The incels.
I'd say the second half of the boomers and the first half of Gen X, they were kind of identifying in the men's rights camp. The MRAs were looking for safe environments for relationships. If they got divorced, they would lose a lot of their assets. That's what they were kind of worried about. And MGTOW kind of came in the late 2000s. MGTOW is men going their own way, and it's about men choosing to opt out of cohabitation and marriage and have, you know, they could still have relationships if they want, but for the most part, focus on their own personal development. And then you get the incels, which are the involuntary celibates, and they just can't get a relationship because they're probably too unattractive, or maybe they have some social awkwardness to them in combination with the unattractiveness. And then the pickup artists, or the PUAs, wanted to kind of play the game to trick women out of that attention and validation. I think a lot of these groups have been declining for the longest time now.
Why do you say that? What's been happening?
The ideas of the manosphere have become mainstream. So there's no need for men's rights or MGTOW communities anymore.
Why have they kind of...
Man, I do agree that a lot of it has become mainstream. I would disagree with the thing that there's no need for men's rights. Maybe men's rights as it was, but I still think that there should be some collective organization of men pushing back on gynocentric laws, essentially, and trying to get things changed and try to fight against paternity fraud or unfair custody and these kinds of things. That is very much needed. But, you know, the manosphere, the red pill going mainstream very much did overshadow, I think, a lot of the old men's rights community, even pick up and stuff like that, as, you know, we saw those big creators and those kind of circus level shows get popular.
Have become mainstream. What has happened there?
You really started to see it explode with Andrew Tate. So he started to take all of these ideas of the manosphere and package them in a more slick and polished.
Secular World says, notice the dark tone at first, now softer, both music and tone of voice. Yeah. It's very intentional. It's very intentional. I think, like Klaus says, I mean, it's a professional production. They know what they're doing. You know, it's presenting it as like something is like it. I mean, I know this guy Sandman. I don't think he's ever used his face or anything, but it's like just this angle, this shot. It's like it's kind of representing like every quote unquote lost man sitting in a dark room, you know, watching this stuff. You know, you can't even see their face. They're just getting talked to by a screen, and they're inundated with these ideas. Like the symbolism of just this frame is really telling of something.
Muscular supercar kind of way, and start selling it to the teenage guys.
And that would be the hyper masculinity. That's the Andrew Tate hyper masculinity guys.
Andrew Tate, a former kickboxing champion and reality TV star, built an army of fans by recruiting followers to spread his version of a hyper-masculine gospel.
Hyper-masculine. Wow, they actually said the word. I didn't expect them to do that. All right, well, there you
your
go.
sword, your wife starts talking, you're like, shut up, I decide what I do. Be quiet, cook. The best men in the world have gone through shit. That's why women love scars.
He became one of the biggest figures on social media and was especially popular among teenage boys and young men. Tate's massive success made it clear that guys all over the world were searching for a sense of purpose.
The question of how to be a man now.
I think this is Richard Reeves. He's kind of the main academic talking about a lot of this stuff.
It's an open question. What's happened is those figures in the manosphere have tapped into a incredibly deep and large reservoir of male need, of male uncertainty, this sense of disequilibrium that a lot of young men feel, and are providing answers to these questions.
Yeah. I hope they tell us why young men feel that. Man, Caesar Quintana, thank you so much for the generosity. I genuinely appreciate that. It seems to me that most red pill content creators are still very gynocentric. For example, most still subscribe to the so-called Brifalt's law. Man, that's a term I haven't heard in a long time. And I think that's the one that says that the women are basically like dictate the terms of the relationship, since they're sought after. I'll look it up again just so I'm not giving you guys. There it is, yeah. The female, not the male, determines the conditions of the animal family. Where the female can derive no benefit from association with the male, no such association takes place. That's one I haven't seen since the forums. Thank you again for the donation. Much appreciated. Oh, man. Yeah, that takes me back. I mean, and it's, you know, for example, most still subscribe. Well, it's funny because that contends with the high value man sort of thesis, right? I mean, and that's in Myron's book. At the end of it, once you achieve high value male status, you know, then it's up to the women. It really, the man has to do nothing because the women are trying their best to lock him down, and they have to do everything to maintain the relationship. So that's interesting, though. Again, thank you.
Education system.
Yo, Caesar, again. Ah, man, I don't know if everybody in the chat knows, but I actually saw on Pearl's Twitter timeline, she put up some clips, and Caesar was interviewed by Pearl very recently. So I know that's behind a paywall now on her Audacity network, so that's where you'd have to see the full thing. But I did watch some of those clips. I almost wanted to, I thought about bringing it up on stream when you got in, but I was like, oh, no. I know it could probably be kind of weird watching me react to you on that. But Caesar has a pretty full story about what happened. Man, look at this framing. I'm so sorry. Just look at this framing. Like, why are they framing it with this guy here? It's like saying, you know, it's just another symbolism of like these guys are so imbalanced and they're not seeing straight.
We see boys and men falling a long way behind women and girls, and the top 10% of high school graduates, 2/3 of them are girls. About 1 million men fewer enrolling in college. Male suicide rates have risen very dramatically in the last 20 years. Since 2010, all the rise has been among young men. Last year in the US, we lost 40,000 men to suicide, which is about the same number of women that we lost to breast cancer. So these are similar sized public health issues.
So why?
You know, and then the other thing, oh, look, he's asking why.
Why is this happening? Have
thank God.
men changed? Has society changed? What's happening?
In the space of at most 2 generations, we have completely upended the idea of what mature masculinity looks like. Some of the traits that used to go along with masculinity are no longer as valuable, like being physically strong. There aren't that many jobs now where being physically strong is helpful. We've really liberated women and girls and given them a new script, which is one of being powerful.
And it's like, if they've liberated women from their traditional role, then the next step is that men want to be liberated from theirs. But, you know, men are so conditioned, they're going to say, well, I want to be a man, you know, I want to do this stuff. And TradCons 1.0 will basically say, you know, they want to go back to like let's say a biblical patriarchy, for instance. My kind of view on that is that it can't happen only because technology is the X factor that really changed everything. Technology set the ground for women, you know, wanting to become feminists and ask for liberation from their roles in the first place. The society that we live in very specifically is the result of the Industrial Revolution, of the Enlightenment, and those changes that they made to how humans live, from living, you know, as an agrarian kind of society into an industrialized one. And it's like, with those changes in mind, that's what led up to where we are now, living in these, you know, super mega metropolises.
And being autonomous and being independent, which is a great...
Sorry, Dan the Man says, I wonder why these guys did an interview with Vice after what Vice did to Tate. That's one thing. That's an interesting question. I mean, my guess is it's just like looking at that Marquette guy, and he's got a class, and all those people are paying $800. You know, it's just Andrew Tate. I mean, Donald Trump also proved that like all coverage is like, whether it's bad publicity, good publicity, it just doesn't matter. So most of those guys are like, wow, Vice, big company. Even if they smear me, some people might see it. Like I might net some more fish out of the ocean with that. That would be my guess. Crabs Go Pinch. Hey, welcome in, man. I don't know if I saw you here before, but thanks for coming in. Briffault's law makes sense for spiders, but for humans, the investment for our offspring is insanely high compared to other species. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, just the fact that we got bigger heads, you know what I mean, makes it so the baby needs to be born 3 months before it really should have been born. And that's why it takes so long for us to crawl and to walk. There's so many things about humans where the young are vulnerable. It's not like a giraffe where it just pops out and then the mom is just like, hey, get up, and it starts walking, you know, to some extent. So it requires a huge investment. And then the investment continues on. I was literally thinking about this morning on my walk. It used to be an earlier agrarian society. You know, you're going to grow up, you're going to be a farmer, whatever it is. It's very quick. The kids just start working on the field. It doesn't require that much education. I mean, even when the Protestant Reformation happened, I think the literacy rate in Europe was like 5% in the rural areas and 30% in the urban areas. But nowadays, it's like it takes a long time to get, you know, someone from childhood to a functioning member of society. And that's a result of industrialization. Also, we need more specialized training. I mean, you know, most of the manufacturing jobs are sent off, so it takes a lot of time. The investment is very high.
Script. We've also...
1 second. Basically, it's bad to be a single mother. Single mother spider, all good. Yeah, I don't know why. I just have an image now of like a bunch of spider babies eating each other in the sack when they come out, and Black Widows.
Torn up the old male script. You're going to be a
But
breadwinner,
yeah,
you're
pretty
gonna be a
much.
protector, you're going to be a
They
provider.
have a
We've
bunch
torn
of
that
babies
up
at once.
And replaced it with what? And the answer is nothing.
See that, and he mentions
Those two generations, we have completely upended the idea of what mature masculinity looks like. Some of the traits that used to go along with masculinity are no longer as valuable, like being physically strong. There aren't that many jobs now where being physically strong is helpful. We've really liberated women and girls and given them a new script, which is one of being powerful and being autonomous and being independent, which is a great script. We've also torn up the old male script. You're going to be a breadwinner, you're going to be a protector, you're going to be a provider. We've torn that up.
See, that's kind of part of the problem right there. He's saying we torn up the you need to be a provider, you need to be a protector. But that's actually kind of not true, because that is weaponized against us. All the strong and independent women he just mentioned still require the man. They still expect the man, and they'll come up with whatever reason they expect the guy to provide still. You know what I mean? We are constantly, you know, whipped with that. The TradCon 1.0s whip us with that. The TradCon 2.0s whip us with that. The progressive feminists whip us with that. How many times have you heard, like, oh, I've tried dating, but I can't find any good guys? You know what I mean? And it's mostly because they want guys making more than them, all this kind of thing. And, you know, a lot of women will say they don't want to do 50-50, even though that's what they should be doing because that's what our law expects us to. So he's saying we've ripped up the old script. I would say, like, I get why he's saying that, but it's also kind of untrue at the same time because that old script very much is in play along with a bunch of other things and it just makes it impossible to do both at the same time.
And replaced it with what? And the answer is nothing.
Dear men, we need to talk. We need to talk about
God, how to be a man, a girl's guide to being a dude. You imagine? And then when it's like if a guy tells a woman how to be a woman. But whatever.
what it means to be a man. Because I think that you deserve better. And I think that things need to...
The pace of change has been really fast, and I think that's a really wonderful thing. I also do think we need
Liz
to have
Plank.
empathy for the people who have to adapt to all of those things.
You're a feminist, and you wrote a whole book
Uh-huh.
about men and how we're confused and struggling. Why should we care about this?
Because the well-being of men is tied to the well-being of women. The same system that hurts women also hurts men. And where this conversation goes off the rails is when the source of the problem is not talked about. So if you say, yeah, men are failing, immediately people go to, well, that's because women are doing well, right? Women weren't doing well because of men and the laws that they put in place, right? Like women can own credit cards and women can, you know, go to school and couldn't even get a divorce, right? What's happening with men is different because we're still living in a man's world. And I think that's also the really important thing to sort of note is, you know, men are still in charge, but they're...
See, you know, and it's just like a small, tiny percentage of people are in charge. The rest of us are kept down and try to figure it out. You know, when it comes to this whole thing, like she's basically saying like women have been oppressed since the beginning of time and they've been living in a man's world basically since the start of civilization. But I think we had the laws and the cultures that we had, you know, based off of our limitations of biology, of technology, wherever it was at the time. I think you can only make a case that women were truly oppressed only from relatively recently. Like maybe right after the Enlightenment, after the Industrial Revolution, maybe after birth control starts to become more normalized and these kinds of things. Now you can say, well, okay, women have these things now that can kind of help them have control over their biology. Where prior to that, they were vulnerabilities and societies had, you know, customs and laws and practice in order to account for both of those. So everybody got a better deal than they would otherwise get, you know, not agreeing. But she's making it seem like all the way back to the, you know, before. And it's just like, that's the part where it loses me. If I had to be charitable, I'd say, you know, relatively recently, sure, maybe. But again, you know, it's just still blaming men just for everything. Secular World says the music again, urgency. Klaus says, I'm shallow, just the voice and how she's talking, I'm out. Yeah, man, I know, man. It's like nails on a chalkboard, and it's just like, it just sounds like a lot of excuse making. I was trying my best to hear her out, hear everything she's saying. Ultimately, it's not going to help. I hope she's just being clipped, only care about men if it benefits. Yeah, I noticed that too, and it's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, men only matter insofar as they're a utility for someone else's gain. Danger. Yeah, so. All right, here we go. This is the TradCon 2.0. This is the goal, gentlemen. This is basically like saying only whoever wins a Super Bowl ring deserves a good life, and if you want to win, you got to win the Super Bowl ring and forget everybody else. Forget, you know, you got to make it to the NFL, and if you're not good enough to make it to the NFL, then you just don't deserve anything.
There's a pyramid. There's a huge hierarchy that happens within men, with, you know, a few men having a lot at the top, and a lot of men, they don't feel in charge.
You know, it could be that way with women too. I mean, again, you know, men are often, they'll be like, you know, men have more physical power, but women have beauty power. You know, there's something I always hear about, like in the manosphere, and this would be like an Andrew Wilson talking point. and he basically says, you know, like, what are rights? And, you know, like, he'll typically get the person based off what rights are, and like, is it an idea? How is it enforced? They'll say, well, he'll say it's enforced by men. So because rights are enforced and require enforcing, men are the ones who give the rights to women. And, you know, he would say if men woke up tomorrow, then they wouldn't have them, which is true on an idealistic level. But on a practical level, I don't believe it's true, because nature has given women their beauty and their attractiveness and their allure as a kind of parody to men's strength and aggression. You know what I mean? If men started coming together to take the rights away from women, I mean, they would find a way to pit us against each other, as is their nature to do, unfortunately. Yo, Miles Nevison, welcome in, man. Glad to see you in here. I was thinking about you earlier because we were talking about some of the framing on the shots, and I know you work in media. It's the apex fallacy. She is evaluating an entire population of men based only on those at the apex. In this case, the male lawmakers. Yeah, exactly. And that's the part that's unfair. And the sad truth about it is, it's like, if you look at a standard deviation graph, if you're going to say it's unfair that this small percentage of men is up here, it technically is fair, because there's a lot of men at the bottom that are just completely living disposable lives that get nothing. You know what I mean? I think you're more likely to find a guy to be homeless, because there are more safety nets for women than there's going to be for the guy. So it almost is balanced in this kind of strange way.
They feel powerless.
If you don't know what the script is, you don't know what you're supposed to do, it's really hard to figure out who to be.
Leo, Miles, look at this framing. When they have a conversation with two guys, instead of putting him like right here and then the interviewer on this side, it's framed to be like so uncomfortable, to like, I don't know, prime the viewer with like, oh, how wrong all this stuff is.
And then meanwhile, you've got this media environment where you're just getting all of these conflicting messages about who to be, how not to be, etc. And
in the beginning of the film too, they had the kids draw the box of like masculinity. So I don't know if the screen we're watching is supposed to symbolize that box, and this is the guys trying to break out of the box, or what.
And at worst, honestly, I feel like a lot of young men have a long list of things that they know they're not supposed to be.
It's called short framing. Oh, well, see, I knew you'd know. I'll have to look up what that is, short framing.
There's a long list of don'ts. There's not a very good list of do's.
And that's because they're assuming all the guys at the bottom somehow benefit from this patriarchy, which is just not true. It's just a small percentage of people who do.
Sometimes you do meet these men who are God's gift to women. Meet Ross Jeffries.
That's Ross Jeffries. He was recently interviewed on Pearl's Daily Show. And I watched that interview, and it became just really this uncomfortable interview where he was kind of using it to like get a gotcha on Pearl. And I do like the old Ross Jeffries. The new Ross Jeffries is, I don't want to say he's bad, but he's kind of an old PUA guy.
He has written a book called How to Get the Woman You Desire into Bed.
Women, plural, Sally.
Women, plural, sorry. It's a step-by-step guide.
Today's masculine influencers have made providing blueprints for young men a key part of their business model. Ross Jeffries was a masculine influencer before influencers were even a thing, and a pioneer in the game of selling courses on seduction.
How to get the women you desire into bed.
Do you think that what you're teaching is empowering men?
Absolutely. Men want systems. Men want predictability. They don't want to rely on luck. But I also think that there is a cry from the collective unconscious of all these men for a hero. It's sort of like a messiah. Someone once called me the sex messiah of the nerds. I am considered the godfather of game and the Prince of Poon.
The Prince of Poon?
The guru of getting some.
Keep them coming.
The messiah of macking. The Sultan of Schwing.
Monarch of Mammaries.
The Ayatollah of...
Asahola.
Someone said, before Andrew Tate was a sperm cell, there was Ross Jeffries.
Before you started this, what was your relationship with women like? How are you doing dating?
I got a feeling that someone who said that was Ross Jeffries himself.
Wise.
I couldn't get laid in a woman's prison with a fistful of pardons. had less than no confidence. I carried a lot of shame, and I had no social skills because those were not modeled for me. But I got into this through studying neurolinguistic programming. It took 2 years of experimenting with NLP to come up with a seduction model. We started doing
NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So he's a mouthpiece guy.
seminars, and then we started selling the footage of the seminars. That took off. My whole thing is to grab a woman's attention and focus really quickly. You can think of it as emotional engineering. How do you engineer emotional states very quickly? I'm not talking about lying, misrepresenting facts, negging, or any of that other bullshit. How do you do that?
So you know when you were saying that you feel really aroused when you see a sunset? Tell me a little bit more about what that's like, Debbie. When I point to her crotch, you feel something arising. I'm imagining there's a line of energy going up and inside of her.
This point you lean over and you whisper it to your friend's ear. Can you imagine our first soft electric brush in the lips and all the things we're going to do to each other when we get alone with nobody watching?
Maybe that worked like back in the 80s or 90s. I just don't know if it would work now. I mean, I don't want to doubt an old PUA guy, but
that you get your friend all hot and bothered.
I got on every freaking talk show you can imagine. I know how to work the media. I had certain sound bites I would say during the interviews.
Give me one.
For women, getting laid is a choice. For men, getting laid is a chore. No one has time to figure out your pathetic subtlety. That made me a lot of money.
And you keep bringing them drinks. You keep bringing them drinks. Eventually, one of them is going to have to go to the bathroom. That's when you make your move.
You know, I can't believe it.
I knew how to tease them with these little sound bites. Little things that I knew would piss off the audience. My mother taught me if you're not pissing...
You know, and I got to give him some credit because like what he's talking about is kind of how the game is played today. You know, like a Fresh and Fit clip or an Andrew Tate tweet. That is what they're trying to do. They get these little sound bites to piss off the people, to get the attention. It is part of the game. You know what I mean? Miles Nevison says, I believe men are going through a collective grieving process over the death of the traditional woman in marriage. In our collective subconscious created the pill philosophies as a coping strategy. Yeah, I mean, I think we've definitely went through a collective anger phase, for sure. And that was the rise of like things like Fresh and Fit, Pearly Show, Andrew Tate's, you know, just that kind of format of talking to the women and the back and forth, the whatever podcast. That was the red pill going mainstream. And if you read the forums back in the day, when the red pill's taken, it's usually followed by what was very well known as the red pill rage phase. And the point of that was to get rid of the last blue pill energy inside you, right? You that had the one-itis, that didn't have the abundance mentality, that was an orbiter for so long, and that did all these things, then you realize it was a waste of time, and it was not only ineffective, but it was literally killing attraction and taking you further away from what you wanted. You go through the rage phase after that. And there's an interesting thing there, but we saw a collective version of that with the rest of those folks. So yeah, I mean, they have been going through that. It's not letting me select this other one to put on screen. But even the 5 stages of grief correlate with the pill categories. The blue pill is denial. The red pill is rage, anger. Purple pill is bargaining. Okay. The black pill is depression, and the final stage is acceptance. No more pills, coping mechanism. Man, that's a great metaphor. I actually really like that breakdown. That's really freaking good. I don't know why it won't let me put it on screen. I think it's because of the you were able to get those emoticon things in there. Let's see. Secular World says, he asked Miles, oh crap, it wants me to play ads. Heck no. No, thank you. Can the choice of their music help you determine how they want to make you feel, or is it just to match the talking points? I think it would definitely go into the slant, you know. Never live by a victim narrative. It's toxic to yourself and the world. You know, that's an interesting concept in itself, Krabs. I mean, like, obviously, like, even like Jordan Peterson, because I think Jordan Peterson kind of started off with that too, right? It was about finding meaning in suffering and not letting the victim narrative get you. Andrew Tate was definitely against the victim narrative. And you know, a lot of these guys are. That's what it's about. And that, as far as like the self-improvement stuff goes, having a victim narrative isn't going to help you. But there is a part of me that believes men can be victims. Like if, you know, a guy finds out his child isn't his and the court doesn't let him do anything about it and he's still on the hook to provide for the child and his say means nothing, even if he doesn't want to be there, that guy's a victim. He's a victim of paternity fraud. Like he was a victim. You know, now wallowing in self-pity probably won't help improve things, but he's a victim and he's going to go through some dark nights and have to go through that journey to heal himself, you know. Like so men are victims. Men can be victims and are victims of unfair practices and injustices. But I hear what you're saying. I do.
Someone off every day. You're living too small.
What have you learned from the new kids on the block in this thing? What have you learned from like the
new kids,
Tates and them about like selling yourself as a business?
Andrew Tate is probably almost one of the most brilliant marketers of the 21st century. He figured out how to break the algorithm.
I'm glad he recognized that. At first I thought he was probably going to come out swinging towards Andrew Tate, but they're not that different, both of these guys. So at least he can see that in them.
Hustlers University. Hustlers University.
Hustlers University 4.0.
You are finally in the right place at the right time. You are the only person who can make this work, and you're also the only person who can fuck this up.
See, so that would be like not getting rid of the victim narrative. And again, I get it, man. There is a lane for self-improvement, and there should always be a lane for self-improvement. But, you know, there is such a thing as men being actual victims and us needing to collectively organize, whether or not you're at the bottom of the totem pole or at the top of the totem pole. Like, men have collective issues that we all need to work together on, definitely.
I say this all the time. Hustlers University is the greatest thing that exists on the face of the planet. Welcome to Hustlers University.
He exploited the environment. So what he did was he created his Hustler University. And so people started taking his sound bites, dumping them on Twitter, dumping them all over YouTube, starting up hundreds, if not thousands, of Andrew Tate channels. And that's why he blew up, because he created an affiliate program that people would get paid to promote him.
And that was unique to Andrew Tate. I mean, that was where his genius lies in being able to come up with that as a strategy. Now everybody has to try to do this. I mean, so many creators now go for that, you know. Crab says Tate is promoting self-ownership there, as far as I can see. Makes sense, even though I think Tate's bad. Yeah, and I mean, self-ownership is good, right? Like, if you're in a position and you want to get out of it, really, it is true. You are the only one who's going to be able to help you, especially when things are stacked against you. And that is a mess, and that's why it does resonate with men. My sort of, I guess, axe to grind, if you will, is just that when that becomes the sort of, you know, hammer in the situation and everything starts to look like a nail, then I think it can be a little lost, because it kind of resorts to just still kind of blaming men more so. Men need to try harder. You need to try harder. And listen, I get it, fine, but again, I just don't think it's long-term sustainable for an entire society, and it just doesn't get to the collective issues men need to deal with, you know, in terms of like laws and stuff like that. I mean, if you get to the Lambos and you get to all that, Coach says it all the time. He calls them high-value targets, Coach Greg Adams. It still puts you in that position. Andrew Tate himself had to leave, you know, England and the U.S. to go to a place where the jurisdiction's a little bit less harsh. You know what I mean? Even if he was Andrew Tate or Jay Waller, all those guys want to go to Dubai and go to that side so that they can avoid the jurisdiction. And so to me, it's just like that's where they hit their limit. That's where the ceiling is. And that's the problem. Tate saying you are the sole reason why this succeeds or fails makes sense. Yes. Now I get that. I do.
So I think that in terms of marketing, that's the genius of Andrew Tate.
We're in
Miami.
Florida to meet Justin Waller.
Okay, here comes Jay Waller. All right. Yeah, we talked about him
He's a
last
close
week.
friend and associate of Andrew Tate. He's active in Tate's business, and he's a major presence within this online masculine ecosystem.
About a year ago, I got a photo. It was in this kid's room. It was a poster of me, and then right next to it was a poster of Andrew. And I was at Andrew's house, and I showed it to him. I was like, bro, this used to be Van Damme and Rambo.
Klaus says, that high target self-improvement thing will only lead to us men fighting each other again, and the feminists will win. Yeah, I mean, it just, society should make sense for the average person. You know what I mean? To some extent, I get it. There's going to be mavericks out there, and that's good. Hey, great. Good for them. You know what I mean? But we have a society, and I noticed this when I was working at child support, and that was one of the things that just annoyed the hell out of me. Even before I started watching any of this manosphere stuff, I was reading the subreddits back then. But I'd see so many divorce orders pass my desk, you know what I mean? And it's just like, the more successful a guy was, it was just like the worse he was punished for the same thing, versus the guy who worked like part-time and that was his only income, and then his order was like $60 a month, you know what I mean? And it just, the system does not incentivize the right people to have many kids. It incentivizes the guys that don't want to work, you know, to have 6, 7, 8 kids. It doesn't incentivize the guys at the top, which is, in my opinion, if they want to improve the birth rate, then, you know, frankly, it should be like that. The other thing I noticed was, you know, I had to work on these cases and set up these cases. And it's like, sometimes I'd see a case with the guy who was paying child support for a kid to a woman he wasn't married, and that guy was paying, let's say, $600 a month. Then I saw the guy that was married and got divorced, and I saw what that guy was paying. And it's just like he was paying $600 plus another $1,500 spousal plus everything else he lost the half of. And I was like, man, like, that guy, why did he have to get punished so much? You know what I mean? And the other guy, you know what I mean? So it's just like, the choice becomes kind of obvious at that point. High value target indeed. I used to call him big fish.
And he goes, bro, I know. The world's changed a lot.
When did you first start posting?
It would have been probably 2021. I had just gotten a little apartment down the street and hired some of the guys that helped set this equipment up. And Andrew called me and he said, hey, I know you enjoy being in this group. You see what I've built. I think that you're gonna do quite well. Why don't you help me build the War Room?
Waller helped Tate build out his business through 2 main products. He became a spokesperson for Tate's $49 a month online business academy called The Real World. He also helped sell the War Room, Tate's top-tier fraternity. It costs $8,000 a year and offers courses and high-priced meetups, but its true selling point is membership in Tate's network of ostensibly elite men.
Tell me about the War Room. First of all, what is the War Room? Explain.
The supreme gentleman, high-value men. The system is enforced by boomers, which lived by a different meta. Unlucky, alimony seems like BS. Yeah, well, nowadays it does too, especially, right? Especially. It's just, you know, typically women are going to want to go for the provider types, which means they're looking for a guy that makes more. And that's the part where men, and that's why I really like the soft guy era. I like the MGTOW guys because they're saying no to that. You know, if I was ever going to sign that contract, she has to be bringing some kind of money to the table. I mean, I bring this up a lot, and I feel like people kind of look at it and they're just like, you know, whatever. But damn near every single marriage since the beginning of time required some sort of marriage transaction, meaning there is a very real transfer of wealth at the marriage event when the marriage happens. And typically, you know, that was in the form of either a dowry, a dower, a bride price, or groom price. And that's the thing that we've really lost. And the entire point of that was to account for the difference in economic output of both parties. So if, you know, in old times, thinking like sub-Saharan Africa is where I read this, and the primary, you know, economics is like raising, I don't know, cattle or whatever it is. And women would do like a lot of that work. And it's like, so if you're going to get married to a woman, you're taking her from her father's house, and he's kind of losing that income she's producing for him. Therefore, a bride price is required to pay to the father for his daughter, because then she comes into your house and she's now doing that work and economic output for you. The other side, then, you know, we get into agrarian stuff. We get into plow agriculture, and men are now doing most of the economic producing. And then from there all the way down through Western society until the Industrial Revolution, you have dowry, meaning that the woman's family pays the man a dowry price that he is able to use, and that is to get the daughter married to, you know, a higher status male or whoever. It goes all the way down the hierarchy, whatever the dowry price is, and it's to offset the economic difference between what the woman's bringing into the house, according to what the guy is. And that works in long-term monogamous relationships. So I kind of see a future where that's going to be a thing, but our laws are 50-50. And since our laws are 50-50, she needs to bring half. Otherwise, she ain't ready for marriage. Mr. Pitt says, I'm surprised Waller agreed to interview with Vice after how they treated Tate. Yeah, someone else mentioned something about, I think it was Marquette or one of the other guys in here agreeing to do it. That is kind of an interesting point. My answer to him was that it's just, you know, they're looking for any publicity, whether it's good or bad, to try to spread their message. And I'm guessing it's probably the same for him. Though, you know, I think I remember specifically which Vice thing you were talking about. And I can't remember if it was an interview with him or specifically a documentary, but I remember vaguely about that. So whether it's a loyalty issue to why he would come here, but I don't know. I just think it's all marketing for these guys.
The War Room is a network of guys that want to create the best life they can for themselves. We talk about business, real estate, construction, crypto, style, how to have a better relationship with your girlfriend or your wife. We talk about how to raise our children. It's a real life group of guys that are trying to do their best.
I wonder how much of that, I mean, I don't know if it is, but it just reminds me of a Fight Club, man. I remember that movie back in the day. I watched it a bunch of times. I even got the book here on my shelf. I read that back in high school a long time ago. Man, I was this close to buying a DVD player because I got all these old DVDs that I haven't seen in years, and that's one of them I'd like to watch again. That was a freaking good movie.
Are sort of included in this space that people call the manosphere. To me, it seems sort of grievance-driven. There's a lot of anger in that space.
Well, imagine being a young man in this world, being told that you could have a good life, going through school, doing exactly what everybody says, and then getting out and not being able to get a girlfriend, not being able to get a job that can pay the bills, comparing yourself to all of the people on social media driving fancy cars.
And then why is that too? You know what I mean? It's just like, again, men are competing in the same job market as women, but they're still being told that they need to be providers. You know what I mean? And we're going to watch something next week, which I think is going to be interesting. We're going to hear the other side next week. I found this thing called like the Spoiled Girl podcast or something. And this woman tries to explain it from her point of view as best we can. So we're going to listen to that. And, you know, there's a lot of things I disagree with. But yo, Caesar, thank you so much again, man. Thank you. Big shout out. I got to get a new sound effect for the folks donating. When I had full custody of my son, I always knew I'd brainwash him to accept that I would arrange his marriage, pay a bride price, and a Catholic religious marriage only, no legal marriage. You know, man, I have spent so much time these last few months reading just all about the development of the family in Europe, as much as I can about different cultures, marriage practices, and so many of them include a marriage transaction, and it's intimately tied up with inheritance. You know, the dowry that the woman is bringing to the marriage is her inheritance, you know, and it's typically like movable goods, like, you know, jewelry, gold, cash, whatever. The son then inherits the immovable good, the land. You know, it's patrilineal, so that keeps the land in the the patrilineal side of the family as the woman goes, you know, and the new husband is accepting this payment from his new father-in-law, which creates a relationship there. It is a kind of trust or a validation of the father's support of his daughter's marriage. And he uses that to start the household. And this wasn't just guys at the bottom. I mean, kings did this, you know, King Henry VIII did this. And that's how all of them were arranged. And that creates a very strong marriage, you know. Tradcon 1.0, you know, like the Michael Knowles and the Matt Walsh, they will talk about the spirituality of marriage, the religious aspect of marriage. But it's like, listen, we have a body, we have a soul, you know. There is a material aspect of life we have to deal with. There's a spiritual aspect of life. The marriage transaction accounts for the material aspect. And then once you got that contract figured out, you go to whatever religious institution of your choice and you get the spiritual soul side of this figured out, you know, with the religious ceremony. So both things need to happen, and I will advocate for that. I mean, imagine it this way, Caesar. It's like, let's say, you know, you have a daughter, right? I'm trying to think how it would work with the current laws that we have now, which are 50-50, frankly. And you have a daughter, and say she wants to get married instead of going to college, okay? And you have $150,000 set aside, maybe $200,000, maybe $100,000, whatever it is, set aside that you can either use for her college or that you can use for her marriage. And, you know, maybe there's, I don't know, there's a young guy that you guys kind of grew up with or you know from the community, and he just finished his master's degree. You know what I mean? In electrical engineering. So he's 24 now, okay? And he just got his first job. He's making $90K a year. I don't know, whatever it is, $110K. He's on track. Maybe he's even got his bachelor's, but he's on track to having a good career in life. You could make an offer to him and he might take it. Listen, you know, my daughter's 19. I want her to get her married. She wants to be married. She's kind of likes you, whatever. And that might be a deal that he takes. You know, he takes that money, he signs the contract. That money is his from prior, and then he could use that to support your daughter and the kids that are going to come from this. It might be an option for people. It's not impossible, you know. Secular World says, what would happen if they removed alimony? In most cases, it is the woman depending on the man, and without it would spiral downhill. You know, the woman's going to come here and say, I've been given all this free labor. You know what I mean? I give free labor. And what about taking care of the kids and this? I'm a housewife. I'm a maid. I'm a chef. I do all these things. And I get paid nothing for it. And if he leaves, I've forfeited, you know, my career. That's their justification for alimony. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I kind of always take a little bit of issue with that. There's two things. I mean, we've created so much technology that's made domestic labor easier to do. I mean, we got dishwashers now. We got the washing machine. That's another thing. But then there's a lot of other domestic labor the man has to do just right off rip. I mean, you know, man, if that outlet goes out, I got to go turn the circuit breaker off, figure out how to get a new outlet, get the wiring right, and get that new outlet in there. You know, all the cars need to be maintained. The lawn needs to be mowed by me. The gutters need to be emptied by me. I could think like of a ton of things. Like if some of the shingles on the roof go out, I got to climb up on the roof and change those things. There's just a million, even changing a light bulb probably as like the lightest one, but there's just a ton of domestic labor things you got to do as the guy also. So it kind of cancels it out. But if they got rid of alimony, I mean, you know, there should just be more expectation on the woman to work or at least bring something. I could understand alimony maybe if they brought some wealth into the marriage and then it didn't work and it was the guy's fault it didn't work because he was doing something naughty. Then maybe alimony is justified because the woman didn't breach the contract, you know. But if she just wants to leave because of no fault, there should be no alimony. So that's just kind of my view on that. Not doubting Waller's loyalty to Tate at all. Just thought it was odd. You're right. It's probably a publicity thing. Yeah, it's probably that. I mean, you know, it's just all publicity is good publicity. At least that's the reigning idea in today's culture. That's another reason Brifault's law is BS. Historically, women didn't have the final say on who they would marry. Yeah, and to be honest, men didn't either, right? Your choice in marriage comes once you have kids of your own, and then you choose their marriages. And honestly, man, there's a case to be made about why that's good. You know what I mean? Because it's like you can have the foresight to see through the BS, to know who to marry your kids to. You have the experience with the other families in your community to know which family's good, what's a good marriage into what family. And the other side of that is there's this huge transfer of wealth. I mean, you've been saving. You have, God blessed you with 2 daughters and a son. You have to make sure you save. Your father-in-law gave you a dowry when you got married. You have to pay that forward to your daughters and to your new son-in-laws. That payment is also kind of bringing your sons to make sure you're going to behave. You know what I mean? Because we got a contract going on here. And the history of it is just very, very fascinating in itself. Like you said, the father would make an investment on the suitor. Yeah, absolutely. And they're taking that. I mean, it's an informed thing. They're taking that. They know what the contract is, basically. But, you know, here we are. We have laws that say, people are like 50-50 doesn't work. 50-50 doesn't work. But our laws are literally 50-50. And since our laws are 50-50, going into the marriage, she needs to bring something. If I'm sitting on $100,000, you know, that's my nest egg. That's what I've saved, whatever. Let's say that, you know, whatever. And I meet some woman and she wants to talk serious because she's marriage minded. And it's like I have this conversation with her and it's just like, okay, you're 27. You're 29 maybe. What have you done from 18 to 29? What are you bringing with you into this venture, into this enterprise we're embarking on? And if she says nothing, man, she's not ready for marriage. Like that just ain't for her. She needs to get back out there and work. You know, and even back then in Europe, if women had no dowries, they had to work. I mean, they had to work to save for a dowry to get married. That's literally what they had to do. Or they could join a convent, and that still cost a little bit of money, considerably less than a typical dowry. But they would have to then save up for the convent price, and then they would join the convent. So, fascinating history. Fascinating. Secular world, without her, he would still have those things. True.
I would understand where a young man could feel this way, especially in 2024. Can't get a girlfriend. If he does get a girlfriend, she's constantly watching some guy like me fly over the world driving a Lamborghini. I understand completely why a young man could be disenfranchised with his situation right now. Completely.
Another thing is guys like this kind of ruin the market. Like, let's say we all agree lifelong monogamy is what's best for kids. I'm not even going to say off rip that is the only right way. I know the religious people will. But there are many different cultures in the world, and whatever their culture is whatever it is. But let's say in this one, in the West, lifelong monogamy is what it is. You know, it used to be this guy. The reason dowry works so good, it's not even just for the guys with little money. It's for the guys with a lot of money. Because by paying him a significant dowry, he gets married, he gets a significant dowry, and they're paying him to stay off of the market. Now what you have is a guy like this who, you know, he's with one chick, he's with another chick, he's with 20 chicks. It's a revolving door constantly of him dipping in and out of the dating market. So that even though he's constantly in and out of it. It used to be this guy got married, got a significant dowry, and that leaves the rest of the pool of eligible people to kind of parlay and negotiate with each other. But instead, the guy driving the Lambo is in and out, in and out, in and out. The women are doing the same thing, and it's just a big mishmash of everything. Miles Nevison says, Briffault's law comes into effect when men can't force their will onto women. When women have a choice, Briffault's law takes full effect. So it's not totally BS, it's circumstantial. It would explain, I mean, kind of how things are now. I mean, the reason it probably makes sense for Red Pill, it just explains the situation we're in. If you want to say we are in a gynocentric society, then it's totally up to the women. Men have like the most negotiating leverage right before the marriage contract is signed, you know. And that's really where you want to stretch it out and make them work for it. But in going further back, you know, if it's arranged marriages, then technically it's like both the man and the woman did not have a choice. So that includes the man also, right? So, you know, when they're just like, women didn't have this, women didn't have that, men forced us to do this, men forced us to do that. Well, if you're a regular guy, you're forced into stuff too. That's just how it worked. Your parents arranged marriage for you.
So what do you tell these young men? How does you being on a yacht, flying a private jet, being in a Lambo. How does you doing that help this young man?
I'm living my life, and I'm going to continue to live my life on my terms. In regards to helping the young man, this is my general message to them.
Hey, I'm living my life and I'm living it on my terms. I'm doing whatever I want all the time. And listen, I can't even get mad at the guy. Is he doing anything illegal? He's not doing anything illegal. I mean, listen, you know, a woman can poke a hole into a condom and commit paternity fraud and, you know, to an NBA player and get the child support money, and nothing's going to happen to her. She's not doing anything illegal. Likewise, a guy can lie to a woman and he's got a whole other family. Then he impregnates this woman, and then she finds out way later he's got a whole other family, and he's just like, whatever. And you know what? That's not even illegal. It's not illegal. Like, that's not criminal. And not saying it's good. I'm just saying our laws don't do anything about that. When women have a choice, chaos, carnage, and destruction is what we get. You know, I feel like there's an interesting argument there. It's like freedom necessarily means unbridled freedom is always kind of acidic to cultural norms and values just by virtue of us having it. You know what I mean? The freer you are, it's only a matter of time. It's just going to unwind. Man, I kind of want to pull up the, see if I could find it. Just some of that. I'm just harping too much on the dowry stuff. Maybe I should calm myself a little bit. Here it is. It's something about this. I mean, this is the average dowry, not for the rich guys, but an average dowry that a guy got going all throughout history. So if you're getting married in 6th century BC Athens, 10% of the bride's father's wealth. So that's a pretty considerable amount of money to be getting right off rip. If you're a Mediterranean Jew, 800 dinars could maintain a family for 30 years. My God, they really had it made. Urban Tuscany, Florence, 6 times the annual wage of a skilled worker. So you're getting like 6 years at least right off rip, you know. And it goes down. And then they hit the Industrial Revolution right around here. Romantic chivalry becomes popular. This goes out of favor in Europe, and you start to see it just in India and these kinds of places. But there was another part I wanted to read to you, and it's this part. As already emphasized, dowry-paying societies are stratified, meaning that there's different classes of people. Monogamous, long-term monogamy, that's most of Western history. And endogamous, at least endogamous, men and women of equal status marry. So people typically stay within class. In traditional societies where men have economic value but women do not, dowry as a bequest is consistent with this marriage pattern. See, so men are producing the most economically where women are not really. Therefore, some kind of payment is needed to make this equal. And this is most of Western history. I mean, so TradCon 1.0s who come to you and say, you know, you need to pay everything, and men have always been the but it's just like, not when you're young and they want you to get married young. That's not the case, and this has been what it has been for years, and only for a small blip, you know, post-industrial revolution, romantic chivalry is going crazy. Have we had it this way that they're talking about? It's unsustainable. Wealthier parents tend to give higher dowries, which in turn render their daughters more attractive to grooms. Grooms who have higher incomes are in turn more attractive to brides. As a result, grooms with high incomes match with the daughters from families where the optimal size of bequest is large, implying positive assortative matching in the marriage market. So if you're a higher status guy, you know, and you're bringing in more money, that would be the quote unquote high value male, you can attract a higher dowry. And that is the price you take for stepping outside, you know, of the sort of the marriage market per se. Now you're off. That's the deal. You took it. This keeps society going. Early stages of modernization increase the income inequality amongst men across generations. And that's what we're really dealing with now. Let me just read this. Bride price. So this is paying someone's father for a daughter, which is not, you know, that hasn't been a thing in Western society in a long time. Bride price paying societies have also been associated with a strong female role in agriculture. See, I'm not just making this up, guys. This is from the academics. Bostrup, 1970 in particular, has argued that bride price is found in societies in which agriculture relies on light tools, such as the hoe. That means women can use them to till the soil, and thus where women are actively engaged. In contrast, she argues dowry is more common in heavy plow agriculture where the role for women is limited. This connection seems supported by the occurrence of bride price in sub-Saharan Africa and China. Yeah, so whatever. I mean, I think that proves a point. We can get back to it. Are there any countries left that have dowries? I mean, you're gonna see that in like India typically. They still have it. It's actually formally outlawed there. It's actually formally outlawed, I believe. But they still do that largely. I mean, it is still kind of informally done. Old habits die hard, I guess. And then, you know, that's a dowry. Islamically, from the Muslim side, there is a price paid to the woman up front. So when Muslims get married, the man pays a pre-negotiated amount with the woman and her guardian, and it goes to the woman in her hands. And that is for in the event of divorce, or if the man dies and she's widowed, she has that amount to figure out what to do next. You know, whether it's live off that or get married again. So, but that's different from a dowry. That would be called a dower, very specifically. And that's where you get terms like dowager from. A dowager is someone who received the dower and then her husband died and she became a widow and now she's a dowager because she's living off of her dower. It's I love reading about this kind of stuff, man.
You're never going to learn how to do pickup and manipulate a woman into genuine desire. You're going to have to go.
Okay, so he's coming after the pickup guys, after the game guys. He's talking about genuine desire.
That man. You're going to have to work very, very, very hard, and there's a good chance that it might not happen overnight.
See, and then that's the promise. Become the high-value man. You were the nerd before, become the high-value man, and then you're going to get genuine desire. But if they're high-value targets, is it really genuine desire, or is it, you know, more of a real politique on the women's side? Maybe for Justin Waller it is, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, you know, for everybody who becomes a high value, or is it just someone that they get? The red pill promise is understanding, you know, dread game and all these kinds of things, not being a beta orbiter. And that's, you know, passing the shit tests. That is supposed to help cultivate genuine attraction. That's supposed to create genuine burning desire. And when that's not there, next is always the move to play. But that's the promise, and that's what helps them sell the classes, you know.
Is it all about the money? Is it all about building the wealth and buying the multiple Lambos? Or is there something more that guys are looking for?
I think guys do want community. They don't want to feel alone. I know there's tons of other groups just like the War Room. I think that everyone's trying to find their tribe. I certainly found mine with the...
And I can even agree with this, man. Life is better when you have people in your life. And I'm not talking, you know, like that are like a brotherhood kind of thing. It really is. It really is, you know, and it's like that can help give meaning to your life if you're part of a greater community that you do help. I do, you know, agree with that. Surely genuine desire for money. Klaus. Miles Neverson says, in my culture, Southern African, they still make men pay the bride price. It's called Labola Rura. Oh, wow, that's interesting. The good thing is you get your money back if the woman breaks her vows or cheats. Yeah, and I mean, you know, what's interesting about that, Miles, is that dowries are the same way. I mean, if the guy did something, you know, against the laws or the contract, sometimes that dowry would need to be paid back. King Henry VIII, he was married to, I believe, Catherine of Aragon at first, and he got paid, I can't remember what the currency was. Was it crowns? I don't know. 100,000 right off rip of a dowry, which was a lot of money, even for a king. And that's another aside. These women who are like, I want to be treated like a queen. The queen's seat, the throne that is the queen's chair was not free. That woman, to get the seat to be treated like a queen, comes in there with a lot of money. And that was the case for King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. And what happened was they were married for a long time. And I guess she didn't produce a boy from her or something. But Henry wanted to get the marriage annulled. The Catholic Church denied him. And then we got the break, with the Church of England, and he separated himself from Catholicism. And he wanted to marry, I can't think, it was Anne Boleyn or something. And there was some talk possibly of him having to pay that dowry back to Catherine of Aragon. I mean, he didn't. I don't know who was going to make him, but that was a thing. I mean, who would make him would be, these nobles. I think Catherine from Aragon might have been from Spain or something. So it could cause war between two nations. But anyways, that's really interesting about South Africa, though. And that sounds like a carryover kind of just from African culture, because a lot of it there was bride price because of what we read here just prior about the economic output that the women create in the way that, the economics worked at the time. But that's good that the laws are actually fair to where if like someone steps out of the contract. I mean, and it almost makes sense. It's like, this is the deal. Sign on the dotted line, accept the transaction, whoever's accepting it from whatever, and that's just what it is. And I think even religious people would have a hard time dealing, saying that the marriage transaction's bad. That's more a reaction of chivalry. Chivalry happened and romantic chivalry happened and romance became the talk of the day. The printing press happened. Books became cheap and easy to make. All these stories about knights doing things to, save the lady or whatever, these heroic feats for the sake of a lady became popular. Romance became popular. Then it became like, well, I gave my dowry back to my wife because I love her so much. You know what I mean? But if you look at even religion, it's just like, even Adam had to give up his rib for Eve. There was a marriage transaction there. So however you want to justify it. But the fact is, that's what makes marriage work, I think. Sorry, new to this world, but aren't these groups based on personal experience, then prescribed to others in hope it can help? Are you talking about kind of like War Room and stuff like that? I think so for the most part. I mean, I think it's a guy and they make it. They got the rags to riches story. They figured it out. They got the ladies, and then it's just like, how did you do that? And then it just, it becomes the class.
War Room. And I believe that many men are looking for that tribe or people that their souls align with.
It's beautiful drone footage there.
Through the War Room and the real world, Tate attracted young men from across the world to join his growing tribe. Eli joined Tate's War Room after seeing his videos during the pandemic.
Do you have a bottle of milk?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's raw milk, yeah.
Why?
Keep me hydrated.
There's water for that.
Yeah, but there's also raw milk for that.
But it's really hot outside. Like, I can't imagine.
It's quite refreshing.
So, I'm just distracted by your warm milk.
Yeah.
Eli says he was eventually kicked out for speaking up against leadership on how the organization was being run.
Oh, we got an inside guy.
So how has your life changed since leaving the War Room?
After you leave a cult like the War Room, it takes time to deprogram your life from its influence. So I'm still undergoing that process of becoming myself again.
That's the wizard.
Is the War Room of Andrew Tate.
I joined the War Room after hearing about him online through a friend who told me, search this guy up Tate on YouTube. At the time, I was a young, impressionable 20-year-old guy, and I watched his YouTube videos, and I'm like, it's pretty cool.
To Andrew Tate. To Andrew Tate.
Damn.
You dove pretty far into it. Like, at some point, you started actually working for Tate,
Yes, right? I met Tate in May of 2021.
You met him face to face?
In Miami, yes. I went to a War Room event there, which I paid money to go.
How much did you pay?
I paid $12,000.
It's a matrix. It's a matrix inside the matrix. Yeah, that's a very apt way to put it. Definitely.
$12,000?
Yeah, at the time.
$12,000. Wow,
of anyone's money.
Yeah, of course. A few months later, I was hired by him. I learned sales and I started doing very well, started breaking records, and as I did very well, I started getting more and more privileges, more and more duties.
What exactly were you selling?
Thank you so much, Miles. I appreciate that. No message, no worries. £5. Man, and you're in the UK, right? Okay, I know you said South Africa earlier, but you are in the UK. Good old 5 pounds. That's enough probably for a. If I was in the UK, I'm gonna save that 5 pounds, and when I fly out to the UK, I'm gonna buy an authentic fish and chips. Thank you.
The war room. You'd learn to sell the war room first, finding out what the person wants in life, understand them at a deep level. And once they understand it, then you bring out the pains that they have in their life and you make them very prominent. And I guess the pitch was just take whatever they told us and spin it back to them in their own words so that they feel like they've been heard.
You will learn the power of hypnosis, the magic of storytelling.
It kind of sounds like the NLP that the Ross Jeffries guy was talking about, right? He was talking about neuro-linguistic programming. These guys are talking about hypnosis for sales.
They want something in their lives that's lacking and they feel like the war room can fulfill it, but they can't quite make that bridge, that connection between their minds and what the war room can fulfill. Our job is to bridge that gap.
Transform yourselves into men of purpose, men of will, men of power.
If his thing is like, I'll teach you how to be rich, it's like, get yourself a bunch of followers who's willing to pay you money, and that's how you become rich.
They want to install Tate's brain into as many war room members as possible, and that's what they did at the events. So it was more so, it wasn't bad that you paid that money to learn stuff. It was the agenda behind you paying the money and then you being psyoped into thinking this is what's best for me, when really you were losing your individuality. You were falling deeper and deeper into a cult and being cut off from the outside world.
But you know, supercars,
Definitely seems very culty. You know, I think he's right
girls'
there.
wealth isn't something we can all have. How did Tate make his case for being able to provide it or give it to the members of the war room?
He'd lay out like a path, and it's called like the white path, to where you work on yourself, quote, you get in fighting shape, you make money with different online businesses.
Okay, so I'm in.
Okay.
Take my money.
Sure.
However much I'm paying.
Sure.
I get in there and I see all these chat rooms.
Sure.
At what point is there an upsell?
So there used to be courses you would buy, and they would run anywhere from about 150, 100, 200 USD all the way up to 1,200 USD just for specific individual courses.
Like what kind of courses?
The baseline ones were the Iron Mind, which is about 700 USD. You had the
which taught you to what?
How to have an iron mind, mental resilience, how to ignore your feelings and do the things that you're supposed to do all the time. You had the fitness program, which is about 200 USD, chess course, which is about 200 USD.
Chess course is like teaching you how to play chess?
Literally just how to play chess.
What?
Yeah.
Do you have a number of how much you spent in total inside the war room, including getting into it?
Probably in excess of like $30,000.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
You spent $30,000? How good of a chess player are you?
Not that good.
Eli also helped sell Tate's online academy when it was called Hustlers University. It's now called The Real World, and its website claims to have 113,000 subscribers. If that number is accurate, at $49 a month, that would mean more than $66 million a year in revenue.
Is Tate the idea bigger than Tate the person? So if Tate the person goes to prison, do the ideas that Tate espoused, do they stay behind? Do they keep resonating with men?
That's a good question. Right now, I believe that, yes, it is bigger, but I also believe that the counter forces to counter the bigger image of Tate is also very strong, and a lot of people are snapping out of that trap.
In 2022, Tate was banned from YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram for offenses including violations of their hate speech policies. He was arrested later that year in Romania and again in 2024 for charges of sexual aggression, rape, and human trafficking. He is yet to be convicted and denies any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Tate has been able to continue spreading his message through affiliate channels and his reinstated Twitter.
All right, and we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to Fresh Podcast.
While Tate has been
After
mired
Hours
in legal issues and social media bans, a network of popular live shows within the manosphere have become more prominent. Shows like Whatever and Fresh and Fit have racked up millions of subscribers. They feature debates sometimes lasting more than 7 hours, typically pitting men against sex workers, OnlyFans models, and other women presented as representatives of modern feminism.
97% of girls nowadays are hoes.
You, my dear, are a
depreciating asset. Every day that goes by, you're going to be less and less beautiful.
I don't want to be with a girl that's been with a bunch of dudes. If I've had sex with a bunch of girls, I've proven my value. If you had sex with a bunch of dudes, you've lost your value.
Wait, I have something to say. Like, how can you say women are privileged because they get these opportunities, but then judge them for acting on that privilege?
Farah Khalidi is a 24-year-old TikToker and OnlyFans model who has seized on this new dynamic.
She was on like a lot of the debates, and she's kind of like a Destiny Light a little bit, and seems to like debate in much the same way that he does, but they're kind of part of a team.
I just love that we revert to these primordial justifications for wanting a woman with a low body count.
But somebody has to, and the thing is she's one of those people who's just like, she doesn't believe in 50-50, so that's one of her takes, you know, as a progressive
Guys
feminist.
are fucking with condoms, girls are on birth control.
A lot of people hear about these podcasts and about, you know, how they talk about women. They will run the other way, and I can kind of understand why. But you wanted to engage with it.
I ran towards it. It gave me so much dopamine to discover the manosphere, because not only are they not afraid to give their full opinion on women and call them like whores and recreational use only and things like that, but they'll also like intellectualize it.
And the people in the manosphere are kind of her best customer for her OnlyFans, which is kind of the sad truth. You know what I mean? Like shows like Fresh and Fit, they do kind of showcase these OnlyFans chicks, and they get a lot of publicity. You know, good publicity, bad publicity. That's the theme of this stream today. It still works for
The thing
them.
that frustrates me the most with like mainstream dating conventions is people will hint at the sort of ideas that's espoused by the red pill, but not with their full chest.
Tell me about red pill.
I guess it depends who you ask. Red pill basically just means that, you know, there are fundamental differences between men and women, but then because of that difference, women's sexuality should be much more restricted, and that
yeah, exactly
men
right.
should kind of learn to game the system to get with women.
It's not about benefiting, it's about evening out the fact that my
Evening what
reproductive role is
See?
not 50-50. So
See, here we go. And this really is the problem with the other side too. It really needs to be 50-50. She's gonna say like, because, you know, she bores kids or whatever, then it justifies it not being 50-50. But that's pretty stupid. I mean, it's just like, you give birth to the kid, I get it, but then at the same time, you two are vulnerable and you have to take care of the kid. And it's not just her doing that, it's the man also.
why would we go 50-50 on bills?
There's a degree of like anthropology in this for you, right? You're almost like a researcher going into the wild.
Yeah, you can actually engage with it versus someone else. If you were to say like, oh, you want to control women, they'd be like, it's not about control, it's about like respect, it's about these things, you know what I mean? They're like scared to actually own it, versus red pill will own it with full force. So you can actually engage with it because they're actually in some way being intellectually honest.
What's the deal with having OnlyFans models and sex workers on these podcasts? There seems to be almost like a symbiotic relationship there.
I think it's kind of just an excuse for men to like voice their concerns in like the least gay way possible. I think they think if they just like have a bunch of 18-year-old women just like scantily clad and they talk about male depression and you know what I mean, like male mental health, but then they're like yelling at it to 18-year-olds, that it's like the most alpha way to kind of
It also goes back to the collective anger phase, right? The collective red pill rage that these shows represent. And I do kind of feel like a lot of these shows are sort of on their way out because the collective anger phase has been, it's being passed right now. We're getting out of the collective anger phase. So, you know, there's only so many times you can watch Myron, you know, talk down or win a back and forth or whatever with some 18-year-old OnlyFans chicks. After a while, it does get kind of old. And a lot of these shows are trying to rebrand and branch out. I mean, Myron is doing the same. He's kind of in politics now. I was just watching Better Bachelor earlier, and his most recent video, he's talking about passing on the torch to other creators because he's more interested in news and politics now. Pearl's pregame show isn't there anymore. She's pivoting and you know, it seems like she's kind of focusing and trying to do something different now. So a lot of these creators are, and the real simple answer to that, why it's young chicks and why it's the OnlyFans girl, is because it does represent that anger phase.
kind of get opinions
the
off
red
their
pill
chest.
rage.
I mean, obviously a big reason they have the sex workers there too is eye candy, of course, to like get people to click on and stuff.
In my case, I'm talking to you all
There's
because
Marquette.
the audience will tune in more to watch bimbos like you, and so
We're helping your business. We did a
we're-
tangible
yes,
thing,
that's,
Farha.
Yes, you
We have a
did. You
tangible
did actually. Yes.
I always feel like each issue that's presented on these shows is a smokescreen for an actual male issue that's being ignored. So For instance, they take all these male issues such as like the loneliness epidemic and they'll blame it on women. They'll say your standards are too high. This is why men are lonely.
I don't think most women can actually genuinely understand how lonely the majority of men are.
Yeah.
I agree,
And you
Jerry.
need to truly understand, if you're Joe Schmo, average in nearly every way, in Starbucks working, you ain't getting a DM ever.
But they also leave out the fact that men are
Unless you're like Pookie or Tyrone or something, then it don't even matter.
not just lonely romantically and sexually, but also like platonically. Like the number of close friends that men have nowadays has significantly dropped since like the 70s. But it's less salacious and sexy to like corral a panel full of men and ask them why they're not talking to each other than it is to just blame it on the 18-year-old sex worker who says she wants like a guy taller than her, and then, you know what I mean, she won't sleep with a guy who's like 5'8" or something.
How big a part of the manosphere is like hero worship?
Yeah, I think it's a bulk of it. I think people aren't, men especially, aren't checking off the same milestones that they would have maybe a few decades ago in terms of like property ownership, even possessing a car, getting women and all these things. So the idea of being able to have this like seemingly cowboy lifestyle is very chic and enviable for a lot of these men who aren't hitting the same milestones that their parents did at their age.
Winning is a serious affair. And you might realize that there's some people out there,
This guy's like so good at getting under people's skin. That's like his specialty. If you guys have time, you should really watch his interview with Rolo. Maybe we'll react to that on one of the streams. It was a pretty good interview.
sharks in that water. Are you gonna be the fucking guppy in the water, or are you gonna be the shark in the water? I wanna be that person to give you permission to do what it takes to actually win. I also wanna provide you with an understanding as to what is surrounding you, what's in this environment that we're dealing with.
There's been a growth in the demand for masculine content, which is kind of what you do, right?
Of course, when people feel like they're suffering, whether they in fact are suffering or they just perceive themselves to be suffering or losing position, of course they're going to seek out something. They're seeking answers to, why am I suffering financially? Why do women expect me to be a rich guy, like the rich guys
Yeah.
they see on Instagram? Why are my natural instincts made an issue? Why is it your body, your choice, but my bank account? You looked constipated.
I have IBS, I'm always a little constipated. No.
See, that's a NLP thing right there, right? Like you gotta push them back on their toes a little bit. Now he's explaining himself, and then this is when I.
No, I was just because I was looking at that chart earlier, and I
saw you little.
I don't understand the
You move
circles.
shit closer.
What are the circles on the side? It says +2, 1, and 0. What are that?
Good question. So, and this is not a reflection of reality. This is a reflection of what should be. So great men, good men, bad men. A bad man should have no woman. He is not worthy of having a woman at all, ever. So he gets 0 women. A good man is most likely to have a woman because women are monogamous and they generally want you to be monogamous. A great man generally gets to have his way, so he may have 2 or more women.
Do you see yourself as a bit of a pastor to a flock?
No, not at all. I actually despise preachers. You see, what preachers often do is they give you a lot of words, but they don't give you practical steps. I'm telling you, all the answers are actually within you. Turns out that you are even better than you realize. Let's unlock that. Let's figure out where you are today. Let's create a roadmap to get where you need to be tomorrow. Let me put you around other guys, a community that can get this done. So as opposed to a preacher, we actually are doing the things that are going to get you across the finish line.
Who wants to be great? Who wants to be someone that they can be proud of? You demonstrate self-love by what you invest in yourself. So someone would look at you and say, that's something to emulate. There's something driving him, and I need some of that. What is your way? I hope all of you came here to explore the world inside of you. The world outside is filthy and wicked. And exploring the world inside of you and cleaning that up, you're gonna make a great offering. The Book of Dark Truth.
We're actually encouraging you to be ruthless and to go harder. It's a tough world out there. And one of the things we often do is boxing, in as much as it teaches so much and builds so much character.
It's all modeled off Fight Club. I think the War Room and Andrew Tate's thing was like this too. MMA fights.
How important is it to a guy to have been punched in the face?
It's critical.
Really?
I will tell you, I did wrestling back in high school for a short time, really. But you do learn a lot from a contact sport in the sense of like you learn what your limits are, and you know, it helps you get out of your mind about like fantasizing something or something like, oh, you know, you think you can beat someone up, but maybe you really can't. Like you can be more realistic about what you can take or not take, you know, once you've done that enough. So some senses it can help.
You don't even understand the world. You have no clue as to the world that you're in. Much of our world is ruled by violence, and you've not even engaged in it. In fact, I wouldn't even trust them.
Coming from a religious background where everything has structure, all this sounds flippin' horrible. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Are you? I'm only asking just because your username is Secular World, but I'm guessing you're still religious now, but you live in a secular world, and not that you're secular in yourself. But yeah, I mean, and listen, man, I mean, this is the freedom loving world, you know. And I almost feel like let's say Christianity, for example. I don't even know if Christianity and democracy so much is, I don't want to even say compatible, but if seems like Christianity is more so made for a society with like monarchy in it. That seemed to be where it did best, you know, and then it's the official religion and there's the monarchy. Then the Enlightenment ideals come and it's about freedom, and democracy comes back, you know, and personal freedom and personal liberty starts to matter. And, you know, we're kind of watching that grand experiment and what's happened with that, and roles and ideals start to decay, right? And that's where like Nietzsche comes in. You know, he saw that happening, and he talked about the twilight of the idols. He said God is dead. You know, that was his famous thing. And he just kind of saw that people's morals and values of society were unraveling. I use this channel to watch secular-ish content. I'm an escapee. An escapee. You made it out, huh? You made it out of the Matrix.
Leader who's never either taken a bloody nose or given out a bloody nose.
How hard are you going to punch me?
Pretty hard.
You got some gloves, right?
Why would I have gloves?
Man doesn't even know how to put a helmet on.
Do I look like someone who walks around with boxing gloves?
One of the unique things about boxing versus other sports, if you get injured during a soccer game or a basketball game, timeout, pause. If you get injured during a boxing match, oh, that's what this is about. Now it's getting interesting. Now everyone's cheering.
Well, I mean, you know, the referee's still going to come in and stop it if you get injured, and you could tap out. So but you know, in a real fight, then you know, anything happens. There's no rules. That's war for you.
Relax. Try to dominate the center, man. Relax.
Dominate what now?
Focus. Come on. Every time I touch you, that means
All of this stuff just seems to be modeled off Fight Club. Like all these guys watch Fight Club, and you know, Chuck Palahniuk wrote the book. They made the movie. Brad Pitt was in it, and everybody just wants to be that.
you're getting hit.
He went easy on him with the body shots.
No. How do you carry on? How do you keep fighting while you're injured? That's a great metaphor for life. You figure out how to do that through experience. It builds something different in you. And that's why when I teach guys, we're going to make you confident because you're going to be worth something. I'm not going to tell you to go get hair implants and get a jaw restructured and get veneers to become confident. We're going to put you in the fire and forge you into steel. And you'll be confident because you have the goods.
He's been inducted. He's been inducted into the crew. It's like a gang initiation.
Awful. Yeah.
We have been asking a lot of questions about gender for a while, and
Oh
with
my God.
feminism and sort of all the waves of it, we've had, societal and policy-driven conversations around changing gendered expectations and ideals for women and girls. And I think that we're just starting to realize that we kind of forgot half of the population also has a gender. Like, these conversations are not totally new, but I think that we're in a new phase of an interesting moment, I think, in history, where men are starting to wonder, why aren't we having the same kind of gender revolution that our female counterparts have been having?
I think that's what's coming. That's kind of the only thing left for men. I mean, the Michael Knowles, the TradCon 1.0, unless they reverse a lot of laws and they do a lot of things, it just ain't gonna happen. And unfortunately, the deconstruction of the masculine ideal is upon us.
Hands on our laps, palms up. And I invite you to close your eyes.
I mean, it's like kind of like as a thought experiment, I think. Like, what does the prince look like if there's no princess to save? What does he do? What's his goals? What kind of life does he live? There's no princess in the tower being guarded by a dragon. But what does the new prince look like?
And take your right hand and place it on your heart. This is the space that we want to be in for the night. Placing your hand back on your lap.
Groups like the Mankind Project are trying to help men across the country tap into a fuller range of emotions.
I like the contrast between what we just saw, which is like, that sort of fighting with Marquette, the Saint and the Sinners fighting circle, and then there's like this, which is like kind of the complete opposite.
But I do want to go in a circle. What I invite now is to say the thing that I'm dealing with in my life right now. This is the most pressing.
Lately, I've been feeling really, really unfulfilled at my job. And just feeling a lot of fear around that.
These fools are tripping.
So, yeah, I was laid off last year. And I still haven't found new work, and unemployment's running short. And,
damn.
And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life next. And I want to find something I enjoy, and I don't know what that feels like.
I think the screaming exercise is a little weird. I mean, I can understand the talk, and I think that's probably good for them.
Actually enjoy a job. When I tell...
Why don't men increase variables to work with instead of constantly searching for a woman that isn't ready? Well, I think that's kind of what they're going to end up having to do, just pursue other things. And it's almost like a MGTOW approach, sort of, not like a black pill depression, but just sort of living life. And I guess since freedom is the thing is the only kind of silver lining of the deconstruction of the masculine ideal, assuming laws don't try to box us back in, it's just about enjoying freedom, which can, I can hear the argument of it being fundamentally selfish, but if that's the sort of life that you kind of have to live at this point, what do you do with your freedom and all this time? I spend a lot of time reading. I'll tell you that. I do want to travel more. Once AI takes all the jobs and menial tasks, what gender roles will we have to fight over? Yeah, when you got a Elon Musk robot that comes in and grabs whatever off of the shelf or picks up the heavy groceries from the back of the trunk so the woman doesn't have to. And you got a bunch of drones and God knows what else. Fighting military war might be different. Fighting over gender roles. What gender roles will we have to fight over fighting over gender roles that will likely be gone in the next 100 years seems short-sighted to me. That's a very good point, man. And, you know, technology is the X factor, man. That's always something I've maintained too. Like, technology is the X factor, and that's why I believe we can't go back unless there's an actual regression in the ways of life, and the TVs are gone, you know, the cell phones are gone, and you're living on a farm and in a village somewhere, and that's it. You know what I mean? Then it's different, and you need the land below your feet to survive. But when AI comes, you know, whenever technology comes, the promise seems to be that life's supposed to be easier. We're supposed to have more free time. And then we're supposed to be able to use that leisure time to do things that we desire. But when the greedy people get involved, sometimes it's just like, well, no, you got to work harder and longer than ever before. I was listening to a lecture earlier today about the Aztecs, and the professor was talking about the nomadic lifestyle prior to the agrarian revolution, prior to agriculture. And the amount of time that the nomad worked was actually like 2 hours a day compared to being a farmer, which is a lot of work and has a lot more problems that you got to deal with. But, you know, being nomadic really only works when the population's really low, because he's talking about like ancient North America, South America. And when humans were beginning to populate it, there was just so much room. Hunting in one place and then going to the next was just the way of life. And it didn't require that much time to do. So they were hunter-gatherers. Then he talks about the change to agrarian civilization and how much work that requires. And then, you know, as we get into where we are now, I mean, it seems like we are working a lot more kind of to be able to sustain ourselves. So it's like when AI comes, who knows, maybe there'll be like a big population collapse. Maybe just a few people at the top will net all the profit and the rest of us have to work even harder because we can't compete. I hope that's not what happens, but I agree with your point that it is kind of short-sighted.
People about this project we're doing, they're like, oh, you guys are doing a documentary about dudes feeling bad? Like, shut the fuck up. You guys are still running the world. Like, boo-hoo. Get your shit together.
I don't think that there's any way to deny that, you know, oh, patriarchy, oh, big scary word, huge scary word, right? But there's no way to deny that there are like systems of control and domination that are still at play. And that, yeah, there is some tiny percentage of men who are the face of that. And it's mostly men who look like me. And then there's all of us. There's not one truth about that.
You know, and that's, I kind of mentioned that earlier, right? Most of us are just under a system. Like, we don't all benefit from that. In fact, most guys don't benefit from it. Women, ironically, would benefit more from that than even the guys are going to be more likely to go homeless. You know what I mean? Women's going to have a safety net there. A lot of them before they end up homeless. But again, I mean, yeah, most of us are kind of victims of that. I watched the Amon Hillman interview recommended. That ish was fire. Bro, I'm telling you, man. I've been watching a lot of that guy's stuff. I love his basic training ancient Greek courses. I've like learned the alphabet. I'm learning the prepositions. I'm learning the vowels. And I can sound out the Greek now at this point. But the stuff he's saying, I'm telling you, Miles, his community is going to grow and it's going to become a problem for the tradcons at the top, because the stuff he's saying is pretty out there. And, you know, there's not a lot of people that can take him that have his wealth of knowledge as a classicist, as someone who reads ancient Greek texts. I'm so glad you watched that and that you enjoyed it. That's pretty freaking cool.
Men are hurting, men are in pain, men suffer. Isolation, depression, suicide. So that's true. And there can still be a system of domination and hierarchy that's in place, controlling a lot of the things in the world.
The media will say that masculinity is toxic. It's not functioning. There's a crisis, etc. And so all of a sudden, the culture starts to believe that that's the truth of all men. So we all get brushed with that stroke, if you will, and it's not necessarily true.
For me, looking back at my family, like my grandfather, he was a sheep farmer in the fjords of Norway. Like, that's
name of the video. You know, I'll put it in the chat for you. And just fair warning, secular world. I mean, I think you said you're religious. If even if you're Muslim or Christian, even if you're Jewish, it's going to be very critical of how we understand religion. This guy is an ancient Greek classicist, and he basically reads and translates ancient Greek texts that have never been translated before. So he has a wealth of understanding of what those words mean because he's read surrounding Greek literature around the Koine Greek Bible. And some of the implications of what he's translated from the ancient Greek and what it means might be a little tough to hear. So probably don't watch that one with your family. But it's very interesting, and I think it's worth a watch. But just fair warning, I just got to put that disclaimer out there. It's this guy right here on Danny Jones. I think this is the one that Miles watched also. But the thing that kind of sucks about this interview, this is his best interview. It has the most views, frankly. But there are other interviews with him that are frankly better, and this one, they kind of tried to put a little bit of it behind a paywall, which kind of was annoying. Oh, man, it's going to be hard to find the other interviews because now they're starting to get bogged down. This guy's getting... There's some older free interviews of his stuff that you might like also. But it's definitely worth the watch, man. Definitely worth the watch. So, yeah. I will tell you, I, for one, find it fascinating, and I keep listening to him because... I don't know, man. Let me tell you, I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world or anything, but I feel like I can recognize when someone has genuine knowledge. And the only reason is because, like, when I went to college, and I met a lot of different professors that taught me classes, and some professors weren't as good as other professors. And when you had a really good professor you just knew they were so in tune with what they were teaching, they were so good at it. It was something I really appreciated. This guy, I feel like has that. So I feel like he just knows his work so well. And like, there's a lot I don't understand, but I can at least recognize that in him. Yeah, disclaimer is a must, especially if you're Christian. You will be triggered. Yeah. Yeah, man. There are big implications to that interview. But it needs to be discussed, frankly.
That's what he did. And I'm kind of feeling like a lot of us are at this point where there's no roadmap.
Yeah.
Like the world was like set out for us, what we were supposed to do, who we were supposed to be. And that's all gone now, right? I have no fucking idea. And like, am I alone in that?
No.
For me, growing up, the men were the jocks. Those were like the guys. So now when I look at it, those are not, the jocks are not the men that I want to look like or be like. I want to be like those men who are able to express their emotions.
There is real power in being emotionally accessible to our families, to our friends, to ourselves, to our partners. And that takes a lot.
See, this is the tough part. I mean, I think sharing emotions is good. Like us sitting here talking, or when you're with a good buddy of yours, and you guys have been through the same things, like one of your brothers or something, you can let stuff out, man. You can talk to them, and that's the time to do it. But I feel like with your romantic interest, that is not the time to do it, man. And there's just way too many stories. And I mean, I think most guys understand that too. It is an attraction killer, unfortunately. But being in tune with your emotions and understanding them, I think is important. Finding the right times to let them out is also important to recognize. Also,
a lot of courage.
There's a right and a wrong
risk
time.
in that.
And like, not most people don't do this, right? Like most people don't sit in a room with other men and talk about it, but there's so many voices coming at you, especially online, right?
I think with the modern men's movement, it's all like things to do, right? Yeah, show my Lamborghini, my flashy watch, and then people will like me. And when we don't have the outer doing construct, all that's left is like, oh, I'm just some fucking guy wearing a mask and I'm in pain and I don't actually like myself or love myself. And so to actually look someone in the eye and dismantle that and start to see who the hell am I without all these big things is what actually starts to get us in touch with ourselves and each other and say, well, who do I want to be and what do I actually want to do? And actually discover the truth instead of just these facades I put up to look good.
I don't think we can beat the online manosphere or the manfluencers. We can't beat the manfluencers online. We have to beat them on the streets. We have to beat them in the schools. We have to beat them in our families. We have to beat them in real life. The best antidote to a destructive online male figure in boys' lives and young men's lives is an in real life positive male figure. But I've noticed some parents reacting to their sons watching Andrew Tate videos more strongly than their sons watching porn. Right, it's almost like a panic. It's like, what do I do, right? What do I do? He's watching this. It's like, first of all, you relax. First, calm down. Figure it out.
I wonder if that's mostly single moms panicking about that or fathers panicking. I wonder if it's both men and women coming up to them worried about their kids watching that. Because I don't know why, you know, it just, to me, sometimes it seems like it's mostly like a mom goes in there and finds her son watching that. And she's just like, I don't know what to do. He won't listen to me now or something like that.
And rather than just saying, how could you watch that stuff? Watch some of it with him. Have a conversation with him. What so many young men are hungering for is just an honest conversation about their struggles.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We just came up with a big list. You can see some of them here. We have Andrew Tate, Ben Shapiro, well, both the Tate brothers, Joe Rogan, Chris Williamson, Fresh and Fit, the Paul brothers, David Goggins. So there's a big list here.
I like how they got, so, you know, they got the TradCon 1.0 and they got the TradCon 2.0s listed together. We got Ben Shapiro with Andrew Tate. You know what I'm saying? Fresh and Fit, Sneeko. They even put Joe Rogan. Man, I remember when they came after Joe Rogan. I remember in the beginning, like, Joe Rogan was dangerous, you know, like all the guys were listening to him. And it's like, looking back, you know, they tried to can Joe Rogan. I remember that. And then, you know, then it was Jordan Peterson. And now it's all the way to Andrew Tate. Now it's like, looking back, it's like Joe Rogan was not that bad at all. I mean, he was mild, you know what I mean? But they had to come after him, and it just made it, you know, more and more and more and more extreme. Miles Emerson, why do you think they fear the manosphere so much? That's a good question. I mean, you know, it's because, see, that's a tough question. It's almost like freeing men off the plantation. You know what I mean? It's like, if men are going to be like, you know, like I would say the MGTOW guys or whatever, you know, I think in their own words, they would say like extremism, and it's making guys more toxic, and they're going to treat women badly and all this stuff. But it's also changing what men, you know, want to spend their money on. The TradCon 1.0s hate it because, you know, it spreads degeneracy. It makes guys not want to get married. The progressives are going to hate it because it's teaching men to basically not commit and be utility for women. I mean, the MGTOW red pill PUA pump and dump combo is like kryptonite to women because it's like they can't lock down the beta guy. The alpha dude can't get locked down. He's just pumping and dumping them. They feel like crap after. And so it's just like they hate it because they think that's a toxic behavior, basically. But it really is just an answer to the narcissism we've received from the feminist side, from the gynocentric side. So they both hate it because it's almost like they can't profit off men as much. But then there's the TradCon 2.0 guys. And in my opinion, those guys have kind of come in and hijacked everything in the name of profit. You know, like, listen, I can't get mad when I see like Marquette and the circle of guys and they're trying to find themselves. Or I was watching a Fresh and Fit thing. I was listening to their show yesterday, and they have their Castle Club generals and clubs now, and they had guys coming on like they're generals and they were truck drivers or they were this or there's that. And there's a part of me that's like, hey, you know, some of that stuff's good. I get it. Okay, a bunch of guys working together to do something. I don't know. You know what I mean? But if it's just for profits, you know, then I can see like, you know, it's not working towards something greater, I guess. But that is kind of a tough question about like why they would hate it. I think it's ultimately just because it frees men and not in a way that they want men to be free, because they want men to be utilities. They want men to still pay for everything. You know what I mean? Most of this welfare money comes from our tax dollars. And it's just like, if men aren't going to play or become passport bros or dip out, that's bad business for them, you know? His idea of a father figure will not work for a single mom. No, it will not. Man, I miss Kevin Samuels. I do too. I was thinking about Kevin Samuels, actually. He had a way, you know, I'll tell you, because I started listening to Kevin Samuels probably like, you know, before he passed away. And even when I was still at Child Support, I do kind of remember his show starting to become big. And I mean, he was an image consultant, and I knew he dealt mostly with women and sometimes with guys, but it was mostly about counseling women to be, you know, fit, friendly, agreeable, and to kind of understand that they're being delusional, wanting a high value man when they themselves were not on that level. You know what I mean? But the part of me that I always kind of was like, and I was like, what about the man's side? You know what I mean? Because he's kind of teaching them how to try to appear attractive to the other side, but then, you know, they can get praying mantis if you're too high value. My whole thing, I took issue with the high value thing, because I was like, man, that's making you a bigger fish to fry in this society. But still, I mean, there's no doubt Kevin Samuels was amazing, man. I miss him too. I really do. Trevor, they fear the manosphere because it's bad for productive output and GDP. Yeah, exactly. And that's men being used as a utility. I mean, we're paying for everything. You know, we're subsidizing a lot of stuff, you know. It's just, you know, you hear women complain a lot about like, oh, well, there should be more CEOs and all this and that, but it's like, go make your own companies and be CEO of the company if that's the issue. You know what I mean? Be productive then. Pay for things. And, you know, now that women are taking these things, they have to start paying for things. They should be expected to. Miles Nevison. So basically, when they can't use you, they abuse you. Basically, yeah. I mean, the TradCon 1.0 is cracking the whip to get you back on the plantation. The TradCon 2.0 is cracking the whip in their own way. You know, it's just serving different masters. I really do respect the MGTOW guys. You know, and that's why Coach Greg Adams is probably like my favorite creator in the space, because I think he just really gets it. He can see past a lot of this stuff, and it's about sort of just owning what's yours and not letting anybody take that away from you unless it's something that you want to exchange. And it's really about knowing it, and it's not about being shamed, you know, into whatever they say the role is. TradCon 1.0 is traditional masculinity. TradCon 2.0 is hyper masculinity. Hypermasculinity is unsustainable. Hypermasculinity is just going to hasten the inevitable destruction of the masculine ideal. And the same way like that the Barbie image did to the feminine ideal. It just became too hard for them. Most of these women were just not beautiful enough to be Barbie, and then they just couldn't take it anymore, and it just destroyed femininity. Now Andrew Tate is the Barbie of the man side of this equation, you know.
Yeah. The easiest thing that like adults often do is be like, get rid of them all. Everything that they say is trash, is wrong. Like if you're stupid, if you believe it, and you're toxic, if you follow, like that's the easiest thing that a lot of adults often do, because they either don't have time or don't have like, I don't know, enough like empathy or understanding for like, what does it feel like to be a teenage boy today? That's not what we're gonna do. We are challenging them, and we will get there, but we wanna start by honestly pointing out the fact that they wouldn't exist in your algorithm if they weren't seeing something that made some amount of sense. What are some of the positive messages that resonate with you? Something that he says that is like actually like to some extent worth my time.
A lot of these people are like anti-fat, which would be negative. Yeah. But there's a part of that with it's them wanting you to be the healthiest version of yourself.
Some of them are teaching that you can have some measure of control in your life.
Yeah.
Whether if it's just when you get up in the morning, go to bed, like,
Thanks,
like I
Miles.
think that can be a positive thing, right?
Appreciate that.
You can hold on to like a little thing.
Yeah, and I think that's also their target audience being younger people who are kind of growing into the adulthood who don't necessarily have a lot of control in their life.
It's become a lot more of an acceptance trend, that it's okay to be how you are and you're perfect just how you are.
Like everyone's being told that you're perfect just the way you are, but it's also okay to be like, I'm unhappy with myself, and these guys are giving me some tips to...
I don't know why. This scene right here is kind of nice. I mean, I don't know. I like that they're talking to the young guys. And I hope they're letting them think and not just trying to force them into a box. Remember, at the beginning of the video, we saw the box, right? And I see these young faces, and I hope that there's a bright future for them.
And that's okay. Yeah. Because I want better for myself. Yeah. And they're giving me advice on how to get there.
Okay, let's genuinely bring everyone back now. So let's go to, this table is clearly in deep discussion. So let's go to Antonio, Ben, Will, Vegas. What's some of what you came up with?
See what they came up with.
It's that it's become normal to believe that that you are okay just the way you are, and that you're perfect, and that you are unfixable, and there's nothing that you could do to improve yourself. But what these influencers that we're talking about promote, beneath all of the controversy and all of the bullshit that they might say, and the core message I think that they're trying to portray a lot of the time is that it's okay to not be okay with who you are in the moment, because you have goals of the future of a different you who is smarter, more capable, more charismatic, more good-looking, stronger, more intelligent. Obviously, they might over-exaggerate that in the videos, but you also have to realize it's marketing tactics. They're trying to get people to look at them and to comment. And
the best thing they can do for these kids is teach these kids how to really think for themselves and to think critically. So when whatever they encounter, they can hopefully reason their way out of if it's a grift or not.
Interact. So they will over-exaggerate certain emotions. I think overall they do have a positive outlook on life.
Right.
And I do think they are beneficial to listen to.
I think that, like Antonio had mentioned, there are some kind of underlying messages that can be perceived as positive, but I think a big thing that is negative and can be detrimental to young, underdeveloped minds is the treatment of women. And I think the kind of aspects of women cook and clean, women belong in the kitchen, guys should pay all your bills, is pretty barbaric and is...
And yeah, and I get it, and reinforcing that guys need to be the one paying the bills is reinforcing a kind of traditional masculinity. Important thing I hope for this kid is just understand, like, yes, women don't have to exist in those roles, but they should be held to account, especially when it comes to the negotiating of the contract and bringing some kind of value, money, very specifically money, if they're expecting you to bring some. And it should match at this point. Yo, Caesar, thank you so much again, man. Very generous. I feel like if life is too easy, we create problems. That's kind of like, it's kind of like that old, what was that saying? The idle hands are the devil's playthings. It is kind of true. I mean, there is, if you're not focused on something that has your interest or that you're doing, and I can even have this problem sometimes too. It's probably why I read so much, because it's like, sometimes things are going really well, and then you find a way to just kind of screw that up. You know what I mean? Like that one mouse experiment, whatever. Okay, yeah, that was from the What If Altus channel, Mouse World or whatever it was. That was a pretty good video he made. I'm not like the biggest fan of all stuff. He's not bad. He's a young guy. He's cool. But that was a great video that he made very specifically. I do agree with that sentiment, though. Man, I always used to, like, when I was younger, maybe not, well, I do think, like, the most blessed person is someone who can find what they love doing for work and, like, the woman that they love to get married to. Like, that would be like a dream life. You know what I mean? Not so simple on that second part with the ladies nowadays, but I still believe if you find, like, just that job or hobby that you love doing, it just brings so much joy to your life. I love watching people do what they're good at doing. Like, it just makes me so happy, whether it's like a painter on the street, even someone, I don't know, making some kind of construction, even like a fence, if they're just good at doing it. It's like, this is a pleasure to watch. It's always a pleasure to watch someone do what they're good at doing. So that's what I try to find for myself too. Like, I got so many hobbies and things that I like to do. And, you know, I'm grateful that I have time and I have the opportunity to be able to pursue those things. That sometimes I sit back and I think, like, thank God I can sit here and read all these books that I'm really interested in. Or, you know, I got all these cameras to do like photography stuff or whatever I want to do. That kind of stuff makes me pretty happy.
Something that can be put off. Like, we have the capability as a society.
But yeah, if you're not doing nothing and you're bored, I mean, I think that's how a lot of young people probably end up, like, you know, I'm just going to smoke all day or do something. And it's okay to do fun stuff sometimes, but I think growing up, like, a lot of the people that I saw kind of get into trouble were people that probably just didn't have better things to do. And they were just bored looking for trouble, you know. God forbid, like car accidents, like even some people in car accidents or some kids drifting around the damn neighborhood. I remember literally some of my buddies doing this as you know, high schoolers, and all of a sudden they were drifting for no reason at like 2 a.m. and they wrapped the car around a tree. You know what I mean? Like, just being stupid, basically. Oh man. Big shout out again. I feel like I need a new donation sound effect. When I was in East Ukraine to bring my son, wow, East Ukraine too, and that is where the fighting is. Man, and you had to go there to get your son. Oh my God. Everyone was down to earth. I saw several young, very attractive gals. No one was simping for them, even though war was looming. People seemed more content. Yeah, man, that's kind of an interesting thing. If I ask you, like, why do you think that was? And just, you know, write a comment. Doesn't have to be a donation, please. Like, why do you think they were just more, there was no simping, they're more content? Is it because they're just living more in their traditional roles? Is it because maybe their lives just had more tougher things that they had to do in order to survive? What was it about that, you know? The closest thing I can only relate to that was like I went to Pakistan twice, you know, and I remember just kind of observing the people and looking at the people, and I went to the city, I went to the village, and it was kind of nice to be away from all of the noise that I encounter here. There were definitely struggles over there and challenges that would make life very uncomfortable, especially if you're coming from here. But there were a certain appreciation I can have of people living in their roles and doing their thing. It was like everybody just agreed on these fundamental things. And now that we all agreed on this fundamental stuff, we can just focus on being human and, you know, other things. But that's the difference.
To remove that. Right. But I think because of these people wanting this big monetization, I think they are pushing controversies that do involve women a lot.
That's true too, right? The stuff that gets good on the internet is shock value stuff. You know, it's all about shock value stuff. And sometimes, like, I've had to kind of pull back from the internet and just, I don't know, it's like you realize what it is mostly, and then you can just stay away. You know, you just realize I don't know, it doesn't have to be that extreme or that shocking all the time, that controversial. Things can just calm down a little bit, you know. I think that's why I want to travel also, just to like get away from the noise. I'm very grateful that I'm going to Turkey in October. Looking forward to that trip. Maybe I can get a couple vlogs for you guys out of it too. Yeah, just trying to survive. Yeah, and that's kind of what it seemed like in Pakistan too. You know, like there's the hustle and bustle of the city. It's tough. And then there's the village and there's the farming life of the village. But, you know, there's a ton of work to do in farming. And the people do it. And there was a kind of charm about it. Then there's also a lot of tough things. You know, it's a very poor country. But those sort of things did, I don't know. I guess it's kind of peaceful being around certain things. But unfortunately, there's the geopolitical problems. And Ukraine is experiencing that right now. Probably because bigger powers are meddling in their affairs, and it's led to them being caught in the middle of that, which is unfortunate for the population.
And yeah, I would consider myself a male feminist, and I am 6'1", and I am a millionaire. So
a male feminist, 6'1", a millionaire. Hey, maybe he is, man.
I think this is very important for sure.
We need a version of masculinity that still captures some of the good things about masculinity, including some courage and some agency and some risk-taking, but also that's compatible with gender equality. Most young men support gender equality, but when you ask them, do you think feminism is a good thing? They're much less likely to say yes. Feminism means supporting women to have equality with men. That's not what that generation are hearing. And so the idea of gender equality is not really in question anymore. What's in question is, how do we treat men in that world of gender equality, as well as how do we treat women?
But it needs to be a renewal of the contract. The contract needs to be revisited, and it needs to be revised. And, you know, certain expectations that weren't there for women need to be placed on women now, especially if they're taking jobs away from men. We need to rethink divorce. But again, you know, this clashes with the TradCon 1.0 understanding of things. One of my biggest kind of, I guess, realizations when it comes to, let's say, you know, Christianity in the West very specifically is like, when you read about like early Christianity starting off as a sect, the sect of early Christianity behaved in a very different way when you compare it to when they became the official state religion. You know, once they were successful and they beat out all the other religions, they became the official state religion. What they, you know, they were able to put laws down and have them enforced. Then they became an institution, basically. And now they've kind of almost gone back to being a sect. You know, they're not the state religion anymore because there isn't one. You know what I mean? It's it's like secular world, like our good chatter buddy here, secular world. And it seems like they still think they're the state religion, but it really isn't. And I know that they want to be. There's a subsect of people that want that to be, but their strategy almost needs to change because they don't have that same power anymore as far as like instituting things go. So it's like they're against divorce. They don't want divorce. It should be lifelong monogamy. So that's where you get Michael Knowles, and he's like, I don't believe in prenups. You know, I don't believe in genetic testing prior or whatever. He doesn't believe in mandatory genetic testing. Get it? And he doesn't believe in divorce, you know, but, you know, someone who's a secularist or not that, you know, deep into it like he is, maybe even if you're religious, but you're not that fundamentalist about it, understands that that's kind of a fact of life at this point. So it needs to make sense when divorce does happen. But those guys don't even want to hear that. And it's like, I wish we can have them understand that to at least make that fair. That can do a lot to help things between men and women.
Women and girls have been guided. I have been guided by women who are older than me who said, I don't want you to face the same obstacles that I faced. I'm going to support you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to mentor you. That kind of mentorship is not happening for young men at the level that they need. And so it's left them...
I feel like her kind of statements there were a little lacking in the sense that, like, men are finding mentors and they're giving them some, you know, there's grifters, but also the overall of the manosphere has given them some pretty good advice in the sense of mirroring back the feminist narcissist BS. And now the women are caught in a place and they're not sure what to do. So to say, you know, their mentors are better than the other side's mentors, or that, you know, men aren't finding it, that's one thing. But the fact is it's starting to change because men are being mentored by older men. I mean, this is the comparing notes of the manosphere. They've seen what happened. The hard part is figuring out what to do that's new, especially when you live in a society that's very gynocentric and refuses to hear men and their grievances.
Feeling very isolated.
Miles says, you can look at everything joyfully or look at everything with great misery. Your joy and misery comes from within you. The issue is today people don't know how to mess not with themselves. Man, is Sadhguru the guy that was in Oregon? Is that Bhagwan? Or is that a different Sadhguru? Maybe it's a different one. I don't know why. I'm confusing him with that cult that was in Oregon, like back in like the 80s. He was like the corporate guru guy. He's the guy that, I don't know if you ever seen him on Instagram, but he has that quote and he's just like, democracy is rule of the people for the people. And then he's like, but the people are retarded. It's just like, let me see if I can find it. I'm sorry, it's just so funny. But the people are retarded. But the people. Sorry, I have to bring this up. Here it is. Is this Sadhguru right here?
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
I don't know what it is about that. You know what? I'll just look up Sadhguru and then I'll. Okay, no, okay. It's this guy. I think I've seen him before. He's not a cult leader. He's legitimate. He's legitimate. Not mess with themselves. I'll reread the quote. You can look at everything joyfully or look at everything with great misery. Your joy and misery comes from within you. The issue is today, people don't know how to not mess with themselves. That's Sadhguru. No, that's not him. Sadhguru is the real deal. Look him up. Okay, we got him. I'm sorry about that. Let me just pull this back up. Okay, we're almost to the end.
Easy, to prey on.
There's always been a market for, let's call it snake oil masculinity cures, right? There's always been a market for that. That's not new. What is new is that there are a lot of men and boys who are really in trouble, and you're offering a balm for that suffering. And that is only going to work when the suffering is real and when other people are not acknowledging it. We create a market for snake oil salesmen if we don't have better cures ourselves. And sometimes
I can agree with
deny
that.
The very suffering that might be causing people
I can agree
to
with
go
that.
to them.
All right. Well, that wasn't so bad right there. I mean, I think I can agree with the last part of that. I mean, I don't think it was as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I did think it would be a little bit more of a hit piece probably, and it could it have done better? Probably, but it wasn't as bad. I mean, I just expected a lot worse. I really did expect a lot worse from Vice. Fortunately, there's no comments here. I did want to show you guys what I'm going to react to next week. Crap, let me email it to myself. Just to hype you guys up for next week. I almost wish I didn't have to wait a week to react to this. Like, I kind of want to do it tomorrow, but I should just be patient. Saturday at 7, is the time. But I think next week we're all going to be really triggered, man. Because who I'm going to be listening to is probably going to be super annoying, but I still feel like it's going to be good for us to listen to. So I got to give you guys this week's notice about what's about to happen, and it's sort of a pearly hit piece, but whatever. A lot of it is not that. So, it says the ultimate pick me never gets picked. That's be from Pearl. Plus red pillars are trad dupes. So this second part is what I'm really interested in. And she goes over a little bit of the Michael Knowles Pearl thing. But some of the discussion, she kind of puts forth the discussion that's sort of from the new modern woman's side, and it's pretty interesting, and it has a lot of views, has a lot of likes. So I think there's going to be some value in us watching that. Just to kind of see, what we agree with and what we don't agree with. Second World's the same. In your free time, check out Sadhguru's video titled "The Purpose of Life." Let me pull that up right now. Just so I have it on my screen, so later on when I'm here, I can definitely watch it. Oh my God, Caesar, sir, this needs to be celebrated. You've been incredibly generous this entire stream. And I do want to thank all the folks who donated, and all the folks who are here. You know, whether you donated or not, I get it. Like, it's all good. You know, I just appreciate everybody that's here because it makes the stream fun. Like, this is a fun stream for me. And, you know, I always appreciate the support and everything like that. But just anybody that's here, hits the like button, does all these things, it really, really does help. So maybe we can, you know, see you next time, Shah. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I gotta watch the entire video of your interview with Pearl. I do want to watch that whole sit down. So I'm going to have to go to her Audacity network and check that. Miles Nevison says, oh, no. Okay, so you've seen her before. You've seen her. I'll be back in 1 second. I'm sorry. I can just hear my cat screaming through the door. I want to see if I can get her some camera time. All right, come on, Mimi. My bad. She's in here, and she's pissed. Man, listen, Miles. Miles is corroborating that this is going to be a painful experience. I mean, I looked at it today and I'm like, yeah, there's some triggering stuff in here. But you know, I just think it's going to be good for us. I think it's going to be good for us. Don't forget to like the stream. Yeah, I keep forgetting to say that. I definitely got to remind people to like the stream more and maybe hit the subscribe button while they're over here. But next week's stream, I do think is going to be pretty good. It's going to be a challenge for us. You know, we're going to be hearing a lot of things we don't want to hear, but I'm going to do my best to try to charitably take apart what she's saying and maybe acknowledge some of the stuff she's possibly right about. You know, it is possible. It's possible. We'll look at the comments. We'll see. And I think at best, what it's really going to do is give us an understanding of the other side. You know what I mean? Like, and we're going to really see what we're contending with. Because when the TradCon 1.0s make these promises, and then you see what these people are talking about, it's like, ooh, they're very far off the mark. You know what I mean? She's hiding over here. They're very far off the mark. And it's just good to see what's on the other side of the equation that we have to parlay with, you know? You got something to say? Yeah, let the people know. Okay. Oh, man, something happened. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that it? You got anything else you want to say? You're screaming so much to get in here. So many disclaimers today. I know, I'm sorry, man. I just feel like that one really needed it. But, yeah, man, I appreciate you guys all being in here. And I will see you guys next week. I'm going to try to get... Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate... This is my little cave, man. I love being in here. I like reading and just hanging out. I will try to get some standalone videos this week. Last week was pretty busy for me, but this week should be better. My dry socket pain from my wisdom teeth is finally gone. Thank God. So I do want to make some other videos. I did want to make a dedicated video on the dowry. I really need to do that. I always keep a list of videos I'm going to make, and I have a huge list of stuff, and then I just haven't been doing it. So that's kind of my problem. I also am trying to lose some of this weight. I became a single man again a couple weeks ago. And in that relationship, I gained like 25 pounds. I'm like the fattest I've ever been, but I've been having a strict diet these last couple weeks, and it's been coming off. I've been going on walks. I've been doing the right thing. So it's starting to bring back my motivation and my confidence and all these kinds of things. Uh-oh. Time to come mess up a bunch of things, huh? Let's just break everything. So, yeah, man. So I will see you guys next week. Again, let me put the Discord. If there's, I don't know if you guys use Discord or not, but some of us folks are in the Discord, and, we have good conversations throughout the week. Sometimes while I'm at work. Yo, Arthur Dunn, welcome in, man. We are just ending here. I'm going to put the Discord invite in the chat. Sometimes throughout the week, we got good invites, not good invites, I'm sorry. We got good conversations going on with Klaus and some of the other folks in here. Damn, I always forget how to do an invite. Time to break everything. Hide member list. Invite people. Copy. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I feel like I'm a boomer using this thing. Paste. They're just gonna break some stuff? Nice. Why don't you just go ahead and just break everything, huh? Yeah, just that's what she does, man. She just hides stuff. So please join. I don't know. It's a small Discord server, but sometimes we share articles and stuff. And the reason I'm bringing it up, if there's anything you want me to react to, you guys can always just put it in there, and it helps me find everything. Up there it goes. There it goes. So we got you in there. Miles says, oh, what the hell happened to my... Oh, it's not on that screen. Whoops. Miles says she advises women to be hyper... Yes. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about all of that stuff next week. I promise you, Miles. I promise. She advises women to be hypergamous and have rosters. She is annoying she is the other side. Like, she's like I want to call her like a pink pillar. She is the other side, but unfortunately, like, this is who we have to deal with. You know what I mean? Can't wait to see what you have to say about her. Absolutely. Thank you, Shah. Great stream. Have a good night. You guys have a great night as well, man. I appreciate everybody that was in here. Appreciate all the generosity. Everybody that hung out. You guys make the stream happen, because if I start streaming and there's nobody to talk to, it's just like after 10 minutes I gotta go. But this makes streaming fun. So Saturday at 7, I'll put the premiere on Friday again, and we're gonna be talking about this woman. And just be prepared. Wear your trigger armor, because it's coming for us next week. I just joined the Discord. Awesome, man. Welcome in, bro. I see Miles in there too. Great, man. Fantastic. Glad to see you guys in there. Is she on the rise? I mean, she's got 200,000 subscribers, so I think she's already made it. But anyways, guys, I'll let you guys go. Let me see if I get some more sky cam of me sitting with Mimi here. This is me just being selfish now. This is all for future posterity. Like, someday, 10 years from now, I can look back and be like, man, this is me hanging out with my cat. Look how happy I was. But yeah, you guys have a great night. And I'll try to put out some standalone content videos. And I will see you guys next time.